Buffalo Sabres game night as they host Carolina at 7. Pregame coming up at 6 o'clock. And for the Sabres, their playoff hopes are alive, but by the slimmest of margins. To put it simply, if Montreal wins any of their remaining 5 games, the Sabres will be eliminated. The Sabres, though, can stay alive by winning out and having Montreal lose out. Montreal takes on Detroit also tonight at 7. James Reimer expected to get the start in net, while Josh Norris, Jordan Greenway, and Tyson Kozak were not seen this morning at morning skate. Some other notable matchups tonight. Florida hosts Toronto, and the Senators are in Columbus versus the Blue Jackets at 7. At 8 o'clock, the Stars have Vancouver in town, and then 9:30 sees Colorado hosting Las Vegas. No Bisons today due to the cold temperatures right here in Buffalo. They're going to make that up with a matchup with Durham tomorrow in a doubleheader starting at 4:35. The Yankees are in Detroit, and they are down 5-0 in the 8th. The Marlins are in New York to take on the Mets just after 4, and the Blue Jays, they're in Boston versus the Red Sox at 6:45. And then over in the NBA, with the playoffs just about to get underway later this month, one team is going to look very different in the tournament. Denver Nuggets, they have fired both head coach Michael Malone and general manager Calvin Booth. Both Malone and Booth were part of the Nuggets lone championship back in 2023, and for the remainder of the season, it will be assistant David Adelman who will serve as the interim. Denver currently sits at the 4th seed in the West. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp.
Hey, put a little. I never get this line out the first time. It's not even good. Hey, put a little bit more in there, cowboy.
And the Bulldog.
What's your degree in?
Kicking ass and taking names.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Didn't need this.
What's that now?
I didn't need, with the draft in sight, 2 more new names. But, I mean, they're new to me.
Okay.
You're going to know both. You're more into it.
Okay.
I think you're going to know both these names.
All right.
New mock draft Bills names. Malachi Starks.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's the Georgia safety. Yeah.
It's the Georgia safety.
That's the right way to say it. The Georgia safety. Yeah.
So, do I just not know him because he goes too early? Is that why?
Yeah, he's mostly been off the board before Evan Worry. At least, when I first started paying attention. I maybe in the last few weeks, I just got back from Des Moines, so I'm not as up to speed as I should be.
That's how I feel.
And by Des Moines, I mean Puerto Rico this time. But mostly Starks was the better prospect at the position. Evan Worry, I think, elevated because of the testing and what a freaky athlete he is. So now you're seeing him ahead of Starks some, and maybe that's what generated this, why Starks is there for the Bills at 30 in this mock you're looking at. But Starks has been mostly a first-round player all along.
Seems right. Yeah, I'm sure that's right. Just haven't seen him in the Bills' range.
Mm-hmm.
And Siobhan Ravel, that was a name. Did we have that name yesterday?
Yeah, that's East Carolina. Yeah.
Cornerback?
He was visiting. Yeah, I mentioned him to you off the air. I said, is this the guy? Because I saw his name in a report that he was coming to visit the Bills or scheduled to visit the Bills. And I said to you, just rather than going and checking, is that the guy coming off the ACL? And you didn't know. And then I Googled, and sure, he hurt his knee in September. So yeah, that's been a guy, like I like him on paper. I mean, I don't know what his health situation is, but he's what did I say to you yesterday? He's long.
Oh yeah.
he's big.
I thought that was who you were talking about when I saw his name today, but I hadn't seen it before.
Yep.
So that's exciting. Do you know who you want yet? Do you know what's the best case scenario for you?
The best case scenario for me is that Nick Emenworry is there for them at 30 and they take him. I don't think it addresses their biggest need. I think a lot of people would be annoyed by it, but I would love it if they just drafted a freak.
I read somewhere somebody thought he was too big to play safety in the NFL.
Yeah, I saw that. That might be, I saw those words attached to him from John Ledger, who I mentioned yesterday when we were talking about safeties at one point, as a draft opinion out there that none of the safeties really belong in the first round is how he worded it. And then he had a criticism for each guy, and for Emin Worry, that was it. That's still my favorite idea. I don't think it's super likely because of, a variety of reasons. One, maybe most notably, he probably won't get to 30. Second,
although opinions vary on that.
Yeah. Second, as Mr. Ledger would point out for you. Second, it is very likely that there's a bigger need and a player at a position that they like more than him. Like, it might feel a little indulgent. They don't have a crying need for this guy on their team. I just would like to see their defense with the best player on the field is your safety. Wow.
It's tough to really talk about this without knowing more specifics, I think. But, Evan Silva yesterday, they do have other draft picks. They have 10 in total. They also have 2 seconds. I wonder what there is to be said about making your first-round pick basically irrespective of what your needs are. Whoever you think the best guy is. That doesn't have to be a running back necessarily, or a tight end, or a punter, but whoever you think the best guy is, to take him, then you use the 2 seconds, where it seems like most of the time, it looks like, people are, the analysts who go that far, I mean, Trapasso went 7 rounds today, but it seems like it's okay. And you see some of the same names in the second round.
Yeah.
His today, there was that edge rusher from BC. The Bills got at 62, and, last week he would have been at 30. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if a safety or a receiver, dare I say it, might be an okay or even a good idea in the first round because of this.
Yeah. Well, the 2 seconds do give you, that's, a little bit of a luxury, I guess. And yeah, I mean, the point is there to be made about the leveling off. Basically, I think, I know this isn't going to be exactly true, and certainly the players will not perform like it's absolutely true, but I think there's a chance they get as good a prospect. Someone's going to like whoever they pick with both of those second-round picks as much as people like the guy they pick at 30. I think just because the pool is just so, it's hard to pin down. You get beyond the middle of the first round and then almost through Friday. I think it feels like, I'm exaggerating now. Certainly through the second round, I think into the third. It's just this pool of guys that there doesn't seem to be a lot of consensus or much consensus at all about. So yeah, I think it's possible they could get the corner from Mississippi, Amos, has been mocked to the Bills numerous times at 30. I've also seen him in the second round numerous times. So I think something like that could happen. It's a little bit like maybe 2 years ago when they got Osiris Torrance in the second round. Right. We were in here like, if they decide to go interior offensive line, that might be a pretty good idea at whatever pick that was. I don't remember now. That was the Kincaid year, right? And they ended up, getting Torrance on the way back in the second round. I think that definitely could happen. And if the Bills agree with that players 12 through 70, say, are pretty comparable, like there's enough guys there that they're going to get something comparable to what they're going to do at 30 in the 60s, then yeah, maybe they don't have to feel as compelled, if they ever do, to draft for positional need. Maybe they don't have to feel like they have to force corner. Maybe they forced corner when McDuffie went right in front of them, and then they jumped up to get Elam. Like, that's the last guy on this tier. And they did it, and they got burned. So
that was after who left? Wallace. 21, 13 seconds, Wallace. And then 22 draft is Elam. They were short. Sound right? They were short. And then that's what you mean.
Well, yeah, they were short, and White was coming off an injury, too. That was the bigger factor to me than Wallace leaving. But, yeah. And, they drafted 2 guys, and thank God the guy they got in the 6th round is now one of the best corners in the league, while Elam goes to play in Dallas. So that could allow them to be a little more I don't know, indulgent, because that Evan Worry feels like that to me. If they like him like I like him, and what do I know? I mean, I see the measurables and I watch the a few cut-ups and go like, wow, that guy could be a freak show on the back end of my defense, and I can use him all over the place. If they're seduced by that, like I am, and he's there at 30, those 2 second-round picks could be a key to making it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that idea just because it is, to me, would be an example of best player available type of thing. Like, if that guy lasts to 30, I don't think there's any doubt he'd have to be the best athlete on the board at 30. I mean, he was incredible at the combine. So that doesn't make a great football player, I know. But, man, I've heard... it's so funny, the different opinions. We mentioned this John Ledgerd, who I respect. We've had him on numerous times. Doesn't like any of those guys, really, at least as first-round picks. Then last Friday, I heard Greg Cosell talking about Evan Worry. Like, he can do everything. It's not like this guy is some positionless, freaky athlete that you got to worry about, where am I going to play him? Because that has happened from time to time. A guy that just tests well, and you just think I'm going to be able to use him all these different ways. And it turns out he's not really good enough at any of the variety of things that he's capable of to do it at an elite NFL level. I don't think Evan Worry suffers from that.
Could this be a linebacker then, too?
You mean, could he be someone who plays linebacker, or could you pick a linebacker?
Could you pick one under the same, principles? Best athlete?
I guess.
I mean, you have to have a plan for him to play.
Yeah, I don't know of such a player in this draft. I'm sure there are athletic linebackers in this draft, but I don't know about to the extent that Evan Worry, who just jumped out of the gym in Indianapolis.
Running back, by the
way. Linebacker sized for a safety.
Running back could also make an argument for best athlete at that spot.
Sure.
But you would never do that.
I definitely wouldn't do that. No. I don't think it's called for at all.
I like how this feels. There's good and bad in this spot, I think, this year. The good is because of the flat tiers and the depth and everything like that, plus the 2 second-round picks, it should feel good when you're done. The first 3 picks they have, that's, you want that to be 2 starters at least. You should feel good about that. I think, though, there could be one thing about this, like the order of teams, there could be competition around them for the same guys that they want, like Kenneth Grant. Trapasso today has Kenneth Grant at 30. You have Kansas City for that. You might have Philadelphia for that. But also, you could have teams like Cleveland and the Giants want to move up. And I've been saying that I doubt the Bills will trade out of the first round because they did that last year. But that's not really important. That shouldn't be important. Just feel like, a team would rather not go back-to-back years without having a first-round pick to promote.
Not only did they do it, and this all just to add on, doesn't have to matter and definitely shouldn't matter, even less than them feeling like, well, I just did this last year. They did it and got kind of ripped for it because of who they traded with and how that's gone so far. So I could see them being reluctant to appear as though they're giving a team a player. Let's just stay in our spot and pick a guy. We don't need, but in this scenario, the Giants love Evan Worry for some reason. I don't know why they would move up back into the first round, but he's there. We can't believe he's there. They got to do it, and he goes on to become Ronnie Lott or something. I don't think the Bills need that on their resume right now.
The Giants love Jackson Dart, though. Then maybe is that different? I don't know. I think it should feel good at the end of it. 2-3 good players. Trade down if you can. I would always say that. I wouldn't want to trade up on a year like this because I doubt there should be one player. This is just, we don't know their actual opinion, but it doesn't sound like a year where there's going to be one guy that you have, that you should have to trade up for. Also, I know you've said this a few times too. Sal says this, how they have 10 draft picks and 10 rookies won't make the team.
Right.
That's never what happens. Only if you have the worst team in the league would all the rookies ever make it. What you want is the most bullets, right? And so I can also trade into next year. I want to give myself the best. It's what trading down is all about. You give yourself the best chance at good players. Imagine if they I mean, I'm cherry picking, I guess, but imagine if they just threw away, if you will, the Benford pick. We already have a corner. We just drafted one. We don't need that now. Let's, move around. And they don't end up with him, we would never know it, that was any part of the thinking, but that would be the bottom line. That would be the result. So I like 10. I mean, I don't need it to go higher, but I don't think it either needs to go lower. I don't think they have to be thinking or should necessarily be thinking about turning 2 or 3 Saturday picks into 1, anything like that.
I'd be stunned if they didn't, though. Like, I really believe in this. Like, if the guys aren't going to make your team, then what are we even doing here? I guess you do get them, you have them, you get to know them, and you can decide if you want to try to stash them on your practice squad. And plenty of guys will make it through. The guys that are picked late on Saturday, can get through there. So it's not like you got to be that worried about that happening. So there is some merit to that, like the Bullets point, but the way they've operated, even in a flat year like this, like I can't remember what it costs. Like you're probably not going to be able to move around pretty liberally. Like in round 2, say, like I could see the Bills, despite how it sounds and how I'm interpreting analysis of the prospects in this draft. I can see them liking a guy enough in the 50s to try to move from whatever their second pick is, a couple or even the second round pick. Same concept. Like there's a guy that they, maybe they'll even try to tell us they had a first round grade on the guy, whatever. Like the guy was just standing out, and we need to, we're going to go get him, and they've got that extra stuff. So, just I don't know how free they are to move with like all those 6th-round picks, for example. Like I don't think you're moving up spots in the 2nd round with only a 6th-round pick being what you give up. That's more like a 4th, I feel like.
Well, the numbers are interesting. There are different charts, but I have the Draft Tech value chart up. So in the 2nd round, they pick 56 and 62. Okay. A difference of 56 points on this chart as it happens. They have 2 picks in the 4th. The first, no, that's not, I had the screen scrolled up. The 7th pick of the 4th round, 109, and 123 picks later, pick 132. The 2nd, 4th, and the 2nd, 2nd are not enough to move up to the 1st, 2nd. Sorry if that's confusing, but the 2nd, 4th round pick, not even the 5th or the 6th, the 2nd, 4th round pick they have by this Draft Tech chart, and again, it's one of several you could go by, moves them up 4 spots in the 2nd round. That would be, they've made trades like that.
So you give up the 2nd round pick and you move up. Yeah, that's the kind of trade I could see them making. I'd almost be surprised if they didn't. I mean, I shouldn't say I'd be surprised because, it's got to fall in a way where somebody is standing out like that for them. But if it happens that way, I'd be surprised if they didn't move because they have the extra stuff and they've done it before.
They have done it before. It's fun to trade. That's another reason to do it. But I think my point is for 10 picks, there's not as much ammunition there as it might seem. Like the 2nd, 4th, again, I hope this isn't confusing. The 2nd of their 2 4th-round picks is their 5th pick out of 10. And it's barely enough to move them up at the bottom of the 2nd round. That's the point. Mm-hmm. The 5ths, they have 3 late 5th-round picks that are almost identical in value, 169, 170, 173. It's the first pick of the 6th round, 177, so they've got a bunch in that range, 206 toward the back end of the 6th round, and then they're done. They don't have any 7th round picks, which is another point to, well, how many picks do they end up wanting to have? If you consider, it's literally not, I know, but if you consider the 7th round like a throwaway round, just like a total dart throw, well, they're not even in that round. So their least valuable draft pick is, not a throwaway. It's the end of the 6th round. And before that, it's the very beginning, the very first pick of the 6th round. So there's not, I don't want to say garbage, but there's not like just kind of like, why not sort of picks here.
Yeah.
Unless, with the possible exception, you could say, I might say, of the last pick in the 6th round. So I'd like to get into the 3rd, and I could do that with the 2/4, maybe. That wouldn't even be a high 3rd round pick by this. A 4th and 2 others, maybe, I feel like I'd rather be where I am.
Yeah. Well, should I know you love the action. Should we I predict the max number of players the Bills come out of the draft with is 8. I would bet that. They will divest themselves of at least 2 of those picks.
I need 9 or more?
You need 9 or more.
Okay.
Right.
I would do that.
All right, we'll
I mean, how many times
find some room? I don't know what's going on over there.
There's some stuff on that board that needs to come down.
Yes. Yeah, the lateral thing has to be over.
The lateral thing, the season, I mean, I know the ad, but the season is literally over.
Yeah, and they had a lateral.
And they had a lateral against San Francisco.
So we need
pay that off.
We need our cohorts on the morning show to clean up their stuff.
Maybe they tried, but it doesn't erase.
That could be it. Yeah, that does happen. Yeah.
Some of these other ones, I could give up. Like I could give up on collecting $5 from Daniel Negreanu. I think, though, actually, he's in Toronto this week or next week, and there's a chance that I'll be able to collect because I'm going to be in Toronto. I looked at, we have a bet, Joe and I, on whether Jeff Skinner will ever take another shootout. I looked at that yesterday. We were talking to Paul, and I just happened to have the hockey reference up. I got to Skinner, and he has not taken a shootout attempt for the Oilers. He took one for the Sabres in his first year here and did not score. And I never heard the story. That maybe it was out there. I asked Paul about it a number of times. He never really seemed to know the answer. Like, what is the deal here?
Right.
Why wouldn't, your top goal scorer, one of your top 2 or 3 goal scorers, never take a shootout? And I might have just missed it, but I've brought it up a number of times. Nobody's ever told me.
I've never heard an explanation.
So, I mean, guys don't have to like it. Maybe it was he took a stance. I'm not going to do it.
Yager didn't like taking shootout attempts. That I remember. That was something that was, I think, widely known. I've never heard that Skinner doesn't like them. We just know he never takes them.
We just know he never takes them.
That's it.
And now he's on Edmonton.
So I don't know.
They have guys.
But I guess that's still live.
That's still live because he's still playing.
Yeah.
The kid poker bet, I can capitulate on that. Belichick, Ryan Tannehill.
Super Bowl start and win a Super Bowl. Yeah, that's up there.
Some of the other ones are long term. Well, we could still do this.
Yeah, I know. We don't have to write it on the board.
When does any team expect or have all their rookies make the team? It's just that's never what happens. So I don't think that means you don't want the picks. I think you could look at it like that, but if I were the Bills, I would want the picks in a year where it's considered so flat, at least for a while. If that's not true on Saturday anymore, then it's not, and maybe that makes it different. Let's go to Bill here. Hi, Bill.
Hey, guys. First of all, let me start by saying I think Brandon Beane is an average GM. That's my personal opinion. I think in the first 2 rounds he's been pretty bad. He drafts some good players, nobody great as far as I'm concerned. But the reason I'm calling is to piggyback off what Schopp was saying. When Sal or somebody else will say, they have all these picks, but they won't make the team. I totally agree with you. The more players you have to pick from, the better you might get good prospects out of those picks. So I don't think any picks are ever wasted. The more picks, the better prospects. And that goes into the face of also saying, when people say, okay, Beane missed on Kyrie Elam in the first round, complete bust, but he made up for it by picking up Benford. And I'm like, well, not really. He still missed on another first-round pick who was terrible out there. And like I said, I don't think he's good in the first 2 rounds. But to say he made up for it with the Benford pick in the 6th or 7th or whatever it was, I'm like, no. Because if he had Benford and Kyrie Elam turned out to be a first-round rated corner like he thought he was getting, we'd have 2 good corners right now, and we wouldn't be addressing the corner position once again in the draft because we'd have 2 good corners. And then we could address other positions in need. But people say that. We got Benford, so it's a wash. No, it's not. We'd have 2 corners if Elam wasn't a bust, and we wouldn't need a corner at all in this year's draft.
Okay.
I think that's entirely fair. I've never felt like, maybe sloppily at one time or another, I've phrased it that way, but I don't think it makes up for it. I mean, it's a miss is a miss, and hitting on someone later doesn't make up for it. It buffers it. It makes it less painful, I think, to look at the miss because you got a starting caliber corner who's one of the best in the league now in the same class. But no, your criticism is completely valid. He missed on a first-round pick. That's it.
I think it's semantics. I think you could connect them. You don't have to. I think you could do that either way. But you could also, like I'm saying, and you're saying, separate them and evaluate it like that. In a smaller way as well, Benford's presence makes it tougher for Elam to get traction, to get, more of a look, if that even would have mattered. Like, they're on the same team, playing the same position. So, you could do that either way, I think. Thank you, Bill. 803-0550 to talk draft with us. We will bounce around again today. We've got the Sabres tonight. We'll talk to Sal. We'll talk to Connor Rogers about the draft. That'll be at 4 today. The Masters is this week. I think it'll be tomorrow for Brian, not today, but that's exciting. Bulldog gets to pick golfers. Almost one of the... you have 10 picks. I don't know if you need them all.
They're all going to they're all going to play.
I would trade 3 of those picks.
Yeah.
For one better pick. That's what I would do with your 10 Masters picks. 803-0550 for your calls. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
Florida leads it by 2. Uzan gonna go. Uzan, give it up. Cryer, 6 seconds, 5 seconds, short. He walked, he can't touch it. He can't. 1 second, and it's over. Florida is back on top of the college basketball world.
Ian Eagle, Bill Raftery, Grant Hill, CBS. I'll go first. I was not only on my feet for that sequence, I did the thing where I walked up to right in front of the TV.
All right.
I wanted to be as close to the television as I could be for that moment. I have a friend. He's your friend too, Carlin.
I mean, thank you.
He's been on the show a couple times now. He's no longer a one-timer.
It's generous, but yeah, okay.
Associate head coach for Florida, Grand Island Viking, proud Grand Island Viking, Bills fan. And I just got to it. I didn't expect to care about the tournament at all once I lost my entries. But I had Carlin. And that led to me standing up. What time was it? 11:30? 11 o'clock, whatever it was. Standing up in front of the TV, like could touch the TV, from where I was standing.
Yeah.
And choked up. I mean, I get choked up at one shining moment. So that I waited for that. And that's a wait. You got the trophy and the confetti and the interviews.
Part of the reason why I've never seen it.
That's right. So that was me last night. Loved it. And I loved Houston. Can I get a basketball take here? Like, same as the game on Saturday, first half, less so last night than Saturday. But I'm like, Florida will get there. They will get there. Clayton did not score a point in the first half. Walter Clayton, best player on the floor. And they had one foul. There were 4 fouls in the first half combined. And I was texting with Sam, like, there are going to be 20 fouls in the second half. There's more. It was 20 fouls by like 10 minutes in the second half. It was, of course, they compensated for that. And I felt like they would get there. I bet them at plus 115 to win at halftime. I would have been, best case was betting them when they got down 12.
Yeah.
Early, but I didn't, do that. Just the one bet.
Right.
Good enough.
Yeah.
So
that would have been a good time to bet him. Also would have been a good time to not go to bed.
You were done,
which is what
at 12.
Which is what I did. Yeah. These games that they begin at 9 o'clock, and all I need is a double-digit lead in the second half. Like I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
That's my bad.
It was good.
Yeah, it sounded great. I think I'm thinking back to. I think on Friday I asked Sam, does the weekend need to sort of redeem the overall? I think I mentioned this yesterday too, like redeem the tournament. And I mean, all 3 games of the Final Four were comebacks and pretty good sized ones. I guess the least of them would have been Florida and Auburn, as far as like the drama goes. But
that was 8 at half.
Yeah, right. So significant enough, right? And I mean, Duke, the final seconds on Saturday night, and then this thing was also pretty incredible.
I think it was great for, if you will, a real fan. Right? Like you're in, there's a difference to you between Florida and Houston and Duke and Auburn, and that's not most of us. It's not like we all have friends on teams. It's not, most of us there are Duke haters. Pat Corain on my podcast, ADP Chasing Today, wouldn't watch the tournament because of Duke. Like
that's a tough way to live.
I don't want to watch Duke. So like the tournament was over for him. Davis on the show said he bounced when his entries lost, just like I would normally have done. But if you love it, I think you can't complain here. You didn't have buzzer-beating upsets in the first weekend. There weren't any. So that's a bummer. But everybody kind of wants, maybe, you could want 1 9 seed or something to make the Final Four, and then we talk about all week whether they're overmatched, whether they can really win, and usually they don't. So it's usually one answer to that question.
Right.
But otherwise, you got the 4 best teams that people. What did everybody say before the tournament started? Yeah, for your brackets, you don't want to pick them all, but you kind of should.
Right.
And they all made it. Great games in the semis. Great game last night. It's got to rate pretty high.
I think it finished with a huge exclamation point. Is how I feel about it. And I guess it depends. What are you there for? I feel like March Madness. You think about the tournament. It's 2 things. It's nothing against the middle part of it, okay? But it's the first 2 days, and it's Saturday and last night. Like, to me, that really the bookends of the tournament are the things that I think you remember the most. The first 2 days is for a 15 beating a 2 at the buzzer, or even a 12 beating a 5 at the buzzer is significant enough. It's a big deal. And you didn't get that, but you did get. I mean, these the 4 best teams put on a great show this weekend. I don't think there's any denying it, and I feel like an idiot for giving up on it. I mean, I was tired, and I'm old, and I'm lazy, and whatever. But watching the highlights back and reading like numerous stories about it this morning, I mean, really sounded fantastic.
I found myself even thinking, am I back as a college basketball? Am I back? I think I'm not back. I doubt that Florida will stick if Carlin's back there. And I don't say that like I know anything, but with college sports nowadays, you kind of always have to say if is that going to be my team? I did really – so I wanted them to win because of him. And I did really come to like them. Some teams I actually hate.
But you bet on them, and you're just sort of stuck with them, and you're just, right.
Or just like you just hate how they play. Like Buffalo teams have been this over the years for me. It's just I hate this team right now. Wrong players, wrong system. That happens. It might even be happening kind of recently with one of the teams. But Florida, who I had otherwise no attachment to, I watched the UConn game in the second round, and they were in tough. They were down in that game too, and I kind of thought this is a game. 2-time defending champ, Florida, whatever that means. I kind of thought, like, this is it. And they toughed that game out. They won by 2, I think. That was a great job. And I didn't see the Texas Tech comeback. But these 2 games this weekend, both times down, I love how they play. Like, they never were too shaky. There were a few turnovers, but they kept attacking. And this Clayton is just so good. So I thought both games they should have won more easily, actually. But they did stay close, and to their credit, they won. And I started to say before, like I know Nick Costos made this point from You Better You Bet, like other people did too, like sarcastically, great job, Houston, getting a shot off in the last sequence or, never scoring in the last few minutes. I don't know. Florida locked them up. Like that last play, they could have called something, getting the ball down low or whatever, try to draw a foul, but that was a block shot. I mean, that was defense, not just panic from Houston. So anyway, I was looking for Carlin on the sideline when it ended, and I don't know, I'm not sure, but I think what he did, Golden, the head coach, sort of jumps up, and they all go toward the players on the floor, which at the other end of the floor, they all sort of come out onto the floor. Carlin, I think, put his hands on the top of his head and walked toward the corner. Like maybe his family was there or something. Maybe like I can't wait to ask him.
Yeah. Like
what the moment was. Did he do this and kind of walk away like we won? I don't know. How would you be?
I
think I'd be like that. Sort of like to myself.
Disbelief kind of, right? Yeah. Yeah, the only time I saw him all night was, I think, when they got the technical foul on the bench. Like, they showed early in the second half, that run of fouls to start the second half. One of them was a tech on them.
I wonder if it was on him.
I don't know. So I didn't notice him being one of the people that had gotten on the floor, but I guess enough people got on the floor that they got that foul. And I did see him as they panned the bench there. But, I mean, good for him, good for them, and good for you getting him on our show last week. Because,
he called me.
Rooting interest.
He called me. This is going to sound like bragging, but he's like, Mike, I'm doing every media in Buffalo. Why haven't you called me?
Well, then good for him.
And I'm like, you're right.
Good on him.
I didn't want to bother you. That's how I am.
Right.
I feel like I didn't call him all season to be on. Now it's the Final Four.
Right.
I can't call him now.
Right.
But we did. Thanks to him for asking. Sabres and Carolina tonight. Are we going for a double up on the hat trick bet?
No. I've suspended operations.
You got your win?
I got my win. I'm all set. Yeah.
You're Mike McD settling with Teddy KGB, and you know what? I'm going to just pay the professor back and head out of here. I'm good.
I'm all set right now. No need for any more.
I'll bet it.
Thompson, go ahead.
Is it a sucker bet tonight? Does anybody ever get 2 in a row against a much better team? By the way,
right?
Does anybody ever do that? 2 hat tricks in a row?
Columbus Thursday night. That's where he had the 5 goals. That's really where the hat trick bet was born. Because when I started this the following season, it in part was, he had a 5-goal game. Of course he's going to have a hat trick.
It's only 3. All I need is 3.
So I just started doing it, and then I wrote it through the year and got paid off. And this year was bumpy, but we got there. But yeah, no, I'm out.
You're chill.
Yeah. I don't know what I'll do. I mean, I took most of that money that I won out of there just so I wouldn't, we did just get back from vacation, so that was helpful. Good timing, right? You're always a little thin when you get back from vacation. So I was glad to be able to replenish that way. So I left a little bit in there to fiddle around with, but I haven't looked at it or thought about what to do with it.
You don't want to blow it.
No, right.
You mentioned something yesterday, and I didn't say anything, but I did bring it up on Friday with Sam. I think it was this past Friday because I don't remember you being here. I told him that right? That was last week. I told him that I was planning on betting against Washington in every round until doubling the bet. If Washington wins in the first round, then I'm doubling the bet. Martingale, they call it. I'm just going to chase.
I don't remember being here for you saying that to Sam, but I know your feelings on Washington, so I'm not surprised to hear you say that.
No, I feel like Montreal could beat them. Like that Buffalo could beat them.
I think anybody could beat them.
Well, okay,
but
okay.
And you'll get a nice price. I think. I mean, they've had a great year, so I like it as a bet. I don't know how much I like it. I mean, it's a chance. It's live. I think
Would they be favored against Toronto?
Would Washington be favored against Toronto?
Right now.
I'm going to say no.
Florida? Tampa?
No way.
So it won't be that easy. Like, if they win a couple rounds, I'm not going to get a great price on Toronto or Florida.
Probably not. Right.
Okay. Because, in theory...
The time to strike is round 1.
If they finish first, in theory, I would be an underdog every round, and all I have to do is win once.
I mean, I don't have to be right about that, but I would be surprised if they were favored over any of the 3 teams in the Atlantic.
Okay.
Myself.
Ottawa? Yes.
Yes, they'd be favored over Ottawa.
Carolina?
I think they're favored over Carolina. Carolina's dog meat when the playoffs get here. Like they haven't gotten there. Like so I think that will drag them down as far as the odds makers go.
Okay.
So probably, I think they're favored. I think they're favored against any other team in the East besides the top 3 in the Atlantic.
Okay.
That's how I would.
And they'll be a pretty solid favorite against, say, the Canadians.
Yes.
I mean, dare I write them in at this point? But
yeah, you're fine.
Probably.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Connor Rogers joining us in 20 minutes on the draft. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. Sabres and Hurricanes downtown. Pregame at 6 tonight on WGR. 2 weeks, 2 days. Connor Rogers joins us just after 4 to give us a preview, take some questions. Masters this week. Tonight is the dinner. Scotty Scheffler, last year's winner, chooses the menu for the following year's dinner. This is something I kind of do in a couple of fantasy leagues, where if you win, you get to decide where, like a theme like that, which I think is fun. And I don't know, I heard Sam and Joe on Bet Sweats sound super excited about Scheffler's menu. It's okay. There's a cookie on it, of course. Like I'm gonna mark you down for a cookie.
You just love being the person who hates cookies.
I do kind of like it, but I don't say hate.
Just never had a good cookie.
I sort of brag about not caring. That's right.
Yeah.
I've never been impressed by a cookie.
I'm going to tell you right now, you get a nice warm chocolate chip cookie at the Masters, which I'm going to just go ahead and assume is going to be like the highest caliber of chocolate chip cookie you could possibly find. Throw a nice, super ice cold scoop of French vanilla ice cream on there, and that is an elite dessert right there. That's all I need. That is all I ever need.
To eat?
For dessert.
Okay.
Like for a dessert. You can bring me the cart, and there's all kinds of elaborate stuff and flames and whatever. And if there is a chocolate chip cookie with a French vanilla ice cream or any kind of an apple, like crisp, anything with apple and like crumbles and French vanilla ice cream, that's it, I'm in.
So much better than the cookie right there. I mean, just the one idea alone, the apple strudel or something. Do you know what he picked?
You mean for dessert?
Yeah.
I know there was a cookie involved.
It's a warm chocolate chip skillet cookie with vanilla bean ice cream. At least he has good taste in ice cream.
Jerk.
But I would
get through that. I would still enjoy it even though it's the wrong vanilla.
Sliders, meatballs, chili.
These are all you're burying the leads here, aren't you? Like
what?
Those are all just like those are appetizers,
yeah,
right? Okay, yeah, right. We're at like there's like a cowboy steak in there.
Yes, or blackened redfish, but
Right.
that's right. There's a ribeye.
Yeah. This is a menu that I can 100% get behind. I understand why Sam and Joe were so fired up about it.
It's good, but the Masters should. A lot of these menus have been a lot more interesting. I'll say that. Mm-hmm. Often, especially when you have an international winner.
Sure. I don't disagree with that. I wouldn't.
I'd love to eat at this restaurant.
Right. I would love to eat that meal. I want a little of all the sides.
But I feel like if you win the Masters and this is your menu, you're not really trying. You're just picking your favorite like little kid foods. Steak and chili and cheeseburgers and, cookies. It's, it's a kind of there's a childlike approach to this, Firecracker shrimp. I shouldn't leave out firecracker shrimp. That's not like a kid's
That's not a
appetizer.
little kid. I don't know I guess chili. Whatever. I don't know. I think the cookie is what brings it all home to little kidville.
Who's going to want chili with a steak?
I need a little cup of chili before, like an hour before I'm going to eat a steak.
3 words. How about a salad?
Well, I don't disagree with that.
This is professional sports.
I could use some roughage there.
These are
some green.
These are the best athletes on the planet.
I mean, the golfers, but yeah,
they're the best
sure,
athletes
yeah.
on the planet. You got cheeseburgers and chili and cookies.
That's only Tuesday night.
That's right.
They got time.
Tomorrow's a day to recover.
They got time to work it off.
What was I listening to? I think it was Katie Nolan's podcast. Casuals, it's called. I was listening to. I think it was that. I hope I'm right. Where they were talking about this menu thing, and somebody said, I hope I have the right show. Somebody said, like, well, somebody asked somebody else, what would you do? What would your menu be? And basically the guy said, I just want to make everybody sick so I can win. Right. So it'd be like uncooked chicken. You probably can't get away with that. That'd be a scandal.
Probably not.
But I'd want everybody to be sick the next day. That's not funny.
Yeah. Listen, man. I had a chance to make whatever we wanted for dinner on Saturday. It's just me and Owen, and I ended up on the nice, dry aged bone in strips and asparagus and baked potatoes. And it's not the most elaborate thing. It's not a hard thing to prep, but it was fantastic. It really depends on how often you get to eat that. Like I can imagine a lot of pro golfers not being super psyched about this menu because whatever, they're probably eating out or eating steak whenever they want it. They're eating it. However often it's healthy for them to do, or reasonably healthy enough for them to do, they're just doing it. I hadn't had a steak in probably 3 or 4 months, and we're like, what do we want to do? Like, you know what? I could really do this, and plus, I know it's not going to be complicated. I'm going to throw some seasoning on the meat, and we're good to go. I got to change I got to change a piece on the grill, so I get the sear thing going. And other than that, no big deal.
The golfers have the option of the fish,
right?
If they're sick of steak,
but if I
eat steak every day.
If I'd had a steak at all while we were on vacation, for example, which I did not, but if I had, I would never have thought, hey, let's go get steaks tonight.
No, right?
Make steaks
Once in a while.
So. If
it should be a treat.
If I'm eating steak twice a month as a pro golfer, I might be looking at Scheffler's menu going, okay, I guess I'll go with the fish.
I'm thinking I need to win this thing so I can decide what we have next year. Connor Rogers next. Back to football. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
Sabres game night tonight. They host Carolina at 7 p.m. pregame coming up at 6. And for the Sabres, their playoff hopes are alive, but by the slimmest of margins. To put it in the simplest terms, if Montreal wins any of their remaining 5 games, Sabres will be eliminated. The Sabres can stay alive by winning out and Montreal losing out. Montreal takes on Detroit also at 7 o'clock tonight. And for the Canadiens, they are getting reinforcements. Their first-round pick of last year's draft, forward Ivan Demidov, is leaving the KHL and signing his 3-year entry-level contract. Also, some other notable games tonight in the NHL. Florida hosts Toronto, and the Senators are in Columbus versus the Blue Jackets, both also at 7. At 8, the Stars have Vancouver in town, and then 9:30 sees Colorado host Las Vegas. No Bison's game today due to the cold temperatures here in Buffalo. They'll make up this matchup with Durham tomorrow with a doubleheader starting at 4:35. Yankees, they drop their 3rd straight. They lose to Detroit 5-0. The Mets are about to get going against the Marlins. The Mets are at home today. And then the Blue Jays, they're in Boston, take on the Red Sox at 6:45. And then over in the NBA, playoffs will get underway later this month. One team, though, is going to look very different in the tournament. The Denver Nuggets have fired both head coach Michael Malone and general manager Calvin Booth. Both Malone and Booth were a part of the Nuggets lone championship in 2023, and for the remainder of this season, it will be assistant David Edelman who will serve as the interim, with Denver sitting as the 4 seed in the West. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Schopp.
Name any word in less than a second. I will tell you how many letters are in it. But I cannot do anything mechanically. I don't even know how to put a game together for 3-year-olds.
And the Bulldog.
Fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Just learned something. We have Champions League soccer on in here, and it's a Spanish-speaking network, Tudden?
Yes.
That we get, and we don't have the sound up, so that doesn't matter. But they do, right on the screen. And I just realized that the Spanish word for London is Londres. Did you know that? Londres, Inglaterra.
No, but I saw that on there. It said Arsenal Stadium, Londres, Inglaterra, and I took their word for it. I assumed that meant London, England.
I'm assuming that. I'm doing that too.
I don't know that it's right, but I'm going to guess that they wouldn't intentionally screw that up.
I'm guessing that it's right. I didn't know it.
Yeah.
I took some Spanish. I didn't know.
Nope, did not know
Londres, or had forgotten it. It's Arsenal Stadium. They don't change the word for stadium?
I guess not.
Estadio?
Yeah.
Guess not.
Estadio de Arsenal.
I don't know. Stadium holds up. That remains in English. City, country, not so. Connor Rogers with us. I'm sure he's finding this interesting. Joining us on the West Her hotline. The draft is 16 days away. Connor, are you excited?
Very excited. Always informative, guys, when I jump on with you. I truly learn something new every single time.
There's something to be said for that. Let's start with the Jets, the team I believe you're closest associated with, pre- and post-game and more coverage for your workplace. What do you like for them at 7? Like, what happens? I read a mock draft today that really was pretty far out there for the top 6. It had Abdul Carter falling a couple of spots, and I don't know. Everybody's got their own opinions, and we're changing them just to keep it interesting, I think. How do you look at the Jets' spot in this first round?
I think it feels a little similar to last year, where it felt like, hey, we'd love to have Brock Bowers and take a pretty fun selection here that could be a weapon for our offense, but our line just needs to be repaired and solidified. And while they hit on that pick in Olu Fashanu, now at right tackle with Morgan Moses, whose body was breaking down a little bit anyway, he ends up signing the free agency deal with New England. Now they have a glaring hole at right tackle. But from left tackle to right guard, they are pretty set. So that's the one big spot on the offensive line. And you look at a lot of these guys coming over from Detroit, Aaron Glenn, Tanner Engstrand, their offensive coordinator. They were there when solidifying their offensive line really turned around that team, notably, obviously, the development and excellent play of Penei Sewell. So I think with the Jets at 7, the most likely scenario is they take a tackle to play on the right side. Armand Membu, who I think is the best tackle in this draft. He played right tackle for Missouri. That would be a pretty tailor-made, obvious selection there if he makes it to 7.
depending on what you think of Will Campbell from LSU, who I like better at guard and might be gone anyway. Seeing New England could take him at 4. So, yeah, it feels like the Jets are back to the offensive line well once again, which you could definitely do worse than solidifying that unit.
Do you say that about Campbell because of the short arms? Like that's the thing about him, right?
Yeah, and it's, you can have short arms, and it doesn't mean you're not a tackle. Rashawn Slater a couple of years ago was a guy with shorter arms who I loved at tackle. It's how it impacts your play, and with Campbell, he more so the wingspan, obviously just how wide he is as a human or his lack of width at the position combined with the arm length. He would basically be in a league of his own at offensive tackle. There really wouldn't be anybody else in the NFL with that small of a wingspan playing tackle. And when you watch the tape, he'll give up the edge sometimes. And when he starts to set a little wide, pass rushers will cross his face because he has to, because he doesn't have the length to recover. And it's not that he's a bad player. I think he's a hell of a player. I think he's the best offensive lineman in the draft if you assume he's a guard. I think he'll transition really nicely there. But I only see a average or mediocre tackle prospect. Well, I think he could be an all-pro guard. So, yeah, you watch the South Carolina tape, you'll see everything you need to see in terms of how that impacts and hurts his play on the outside.
Is quarterback viable to you for the Jets at 7? Or if not, when might it be? Round 2?
I guess, honestly, I wouldn't take one in this draft if I was them. And I'm probably on an island, but I just don't see the point. Listen, Cam Ward's going to go number 1, and he's the guy in this draft by a healthy margin. There's I think a nice, okay floor with Shedeur Sanders. I don't see the upside where he'll be a top 12 starter in the league unless he's in a great situation, which the Jets don't have that right now. Jackson Dart is really, really an interesting player because he has started plenty of games but never really played under center. I think he plays a tick slow right now. I'd like him to sit. And then if you look at that, like the Jets, they signed Justin Fields to start and play and see what he has and buy them a little time. And if Fields really falls apart, Tyrod Taylor is a perfectly capable backup. So the only guy I would truly take a day 2, dart throw on for the Jets, depending how they tailor the system around Fields, is Jalen Milroe. Because now you have a running quarterback system, and Milroe might have more upside as a passer a couple of years down the road. And I thought he was going to be a 3rd-round pick. It feels like he's picking up a lot of steam again. So I think the Jets are just in a scenario where they need to really build out the rest of this team, see what they have in Fields this year, and then focus on drafting a quarterback when this roster is much better and prepared to have one, I would say a year or 2 from now.
I'm over here pumping my fist. Like you suggesting the Jets taking Jalen Milroe on day 2 is some kind of a win for me. I love him. Mike and I have a bet in here, Connor, that he's going in the top 16. I thought some team would fall in love with him. This was way before the combine even. I thought he's toolsy enough and is definitely elite as far as running goes that some team would think, I can develop him and make him into something. He's played a lot of games, the character and leadership and all the stuff. I just could see a team really crushing on him.
He is just a fantastic kid. I sat down with him at the Combine, and I think he was my favorite out of 40 interviews I did. And just you just get it with him. And even ask his teammates. They asked his teammate Tyler Booker about him, who was guard in front of him. And, I mean, he's just a classic case of, the first guy there every morning and stays as long as he possibly can while being in school. And somebody that when he got there, he was 191 pounds, and he decided, okay, I'm going to lift with the linebackers and defensive line, so I get up to 220 plus, and he did that. And he was a tremendous runner and an inconsistent passer, but you'll never question the work ethic. Obviously, the ability, a 4.4 kind of guy in terms of speed. He can make all the throws. He just needs to settle down sometimes. And they went through a lot of transition there at Alabama. It wasn't always just steady there. They went through a big transition period, and things changed. So I know teams love the person and they love the talent. They're just trying to figure out what situation can they put him in where he is granted a redshirt year in the NFL to kind of slow things down for him. And I think a lot of teams would love to do that with Jackson Dart as well. I see more upside in Milroe, but it'll definitely be fascinating to see if one of those guys sneaks into the first round.
There is maybe a style fit there with you mentioned Fields has been signed to be the starter for the Jets. Obviously, his rushing is a big part of his appeal. So if you're looking to have Milroe be an understudy, I would imagine the Jets are busy trying to put together an offense that will play to Fields' strengths, and it stands to reason that might also play to Milroe's strengths.
Without a doubt. They want to run the ball. Glenn has been really, really adamant that all three running backs are going to get involved with running the ball. They obviously want the final piece on this offensive line at right tackle, so that's a strength for them to lean on and run the ball. So there's definitely been some pre-draft interest from the Jets. I think that at some point it'll be too rich for their blood. If a team loves him enough to take him in the first round, like that's tough luck for the Jets. And even I don't know at 42, they just have a lot of needs on this roster right now after this Rodgers era that they have to clean up. So it'll be really interesting to see who falls in love with Milroe and ultimately how much that means in terms of how high they take him.
Connor, how much different does it sound there with Glenn in charge now, installed as the head coach? Like, has there been a marked departure from the way things had been, or is it still like sort of a little bit the same, just with some different faces?
I think it's as different as I've seen, guys, throughout, the last 10 years. I feel like I've been a lot closer to this team from an employment perspective the last half decade. And I think that I feel like finally there's an uneasy feeling, and I mean that in a good way. It felt like with Saleh, Saleh has some really good ideas schematically. I think he's a good person, and I think he knows how to evaluate talent. They hit on some defensive picks and waiver wire pickups and all of that. I think there was just too much of a loose environment that guys kind of went by their own beat of the drum at times, and I think the scheme didn't adjust, and I think that Glenn is intense. He is really intense with the media. He is really intense as a coach. He's played here, and that's something that all the guys that have coached here in recent history never understood. The last guy that understood New York Jets, being like the coach of the New York Jets, was Rex Ryan, and obviously, family roots kind of helped him along the line with that. I think Glenn understands some of the shortcomings the organization has had as a whole and how he needs to address them and turn that over. And I don't think it's going to be quick. I don't think the Jets are going to turn around and win 10 games this year. I don't think everything's going to be perfect. I think there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road. But this is the kind of guy they needed, an actual CEO that I think, number one, cares a lot about player development and drafting. I think he's actually the GM of this team, and Darren Muji is kind of his right-hand man. And I think it'll be really interesting because he's been, mentored by Bill Parcells. It'll be interesting how that side of things goes for Glenn, who started as a scout after his playing days. So there's definitely a different feeling around the team, and I think there's going to be some hard decisions of some guys sinking or swimming with this organization over the next year.
Don't mean to spend the whole time here with you, Connor, on the Jets, but I am curious to know how you think the Fields thing will go. With all this being said, I know you're involved in fantasy football too, as am I. And I loved that it happened, that Fields got a team where he got enough money to have you think that he's going to be on the field every week. And, fantasy-wise, he's been, great value. He's about quarterback 14, I think, this year so far in drafts. Are you optimistic for him?
I'm definitely optimistic for him in fantasy because with Justin Fields, you just want a place for him to go to a place where he starts. And the Jets have not even really been cute about this. They've come out and said at the owners' meetings that he's the starter. So number one, if Fields is out there on the field, his running ability is always going to play in fantasy. And I think if you want the optimistic side with Fields, it's that obviously Garrett Wilson is the best wide receiver that he's played with in the NFL, and they've already played together at Ohio State. So that's built in right away where you have a true number one wide receiver, and Fields, there's going to be a comfort level there with him as well. I think number two, I think this offense will understand how to put the game in his hands and take a little off his plate at the same time. And what I mean by that is understanding how to actually establish the run, something this team was terrible at last year, and that's why I think they're going to take a tackle with the 7th overall pick, so they have a complete offensive line. And actually have a little creativity coming from the Detroit system where they actually think outside the box in terms of some of the play calling, the motion. They were so static within the Rodgers era. I mean, so outdated. It was very, very predictable. It was very easy to play against in terms of how to prepare against for the opposition. And that will all help Fields. Now, do I think the numbers are going to be jarring and amazing? And no, I think that the rushing, I could see him running for over 800 yards. Do I see him throwing for 30 touchdowns? Or I think they'll be very careful with how they have him throw. I think there'll be a lot of checkdowns to Breece Hall. I think they'll get the screen game going. And I think when they really need him to drop back on 3rd and long, they'll ask him to make a play, but they'll be really careful with how they go about that. So I think it'll be kind of what we saw from Fields in Pittsburgh, which was solid but not spectacular, and you're going to need other areas of your roster to help you win games. But for the Jets, honestly, that's a win right now for what they paid him and for the fact that everybody likes to throw the numbers in everyone's face. But Aaron Rodgers was not good last year. I watched all those games way too many times, and there was a lot of moments where with him unable to move back there and going back to the kind of offense he want implemented and a lot of chemistry issues, the offense was a real problem for this team where I think it can only go upwards.
And just quickly, so we can get to a couple other topics before we're done today, Connor. This is also, I have to admit, somewhat coming from a fantasy standpoint, but it doesn't have to be considered as that. The Breece Hall comments so far today on a podcast I'm on, ADP Chasing, we talked about like whether to believe that there'll be a committee with the Jets, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis. What do you think will happen?
I'm a little, cautiously pessimistic on Breece this year, honestly. I think that, number one, I just don't think he's been healthy in a while. And when I say healthy, I think it's been in spurts, and that's just not good enough for the kind of player he is with the breakaway speed he has. And, I think the organization right now is very hesitant to wheel the red carpet out for Breece. And I think they don't feel that way about Garrett Wilson or Sauce Gardner. They're other young players in that draft class. I think they want them here forever. And so that said everything to me where, maybe it ends up putting Breece in a better scenario on a better team somewhere, but his Jets future right now, thinking he could be a top 3 back in the league, it feels like those days are well behind us.
Okay. Top of the draft for you. You mentioned Cam Ward already. It's almost unanimous at this point, it seems, for him to go at 1 to the Titans. What would you do if you were Cleveland?
I would take Travis Hunter. I think he's the best player in the draft. I think that they are one of the teams that can truly capitalize on his two-way ability. It sounds like there's a lot of leaks coming out of there that they like him at wide receiver, which I think he'd be the best receiver in this draft class. I think he'd be the best corner in this draft class. And whatever you need, whatever you feel confident in, play him in that. I understand the love for Abdul Carter. I understand the dream of having him and Myles Garrett across from each other. I just think it makes them a little thin in some other areas they really need. And I think that Hunter is just a marvelous player that would really do a lot for them. So I would take him at number 2. I think he's the best player in the draft.
And then the Giants at 3. Would you be on Carter then? Is that easy?
You have to, because the gap in terms of talent is just so wide with him. But it's not a good scenario. It's weird to say that because Abdul Carter is amazing.
Right, but they just signed Brian Burns and they've got Thibodeau, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. It feels like the way the draft falls did not fall. Like, I'd rather have Travis Hunter 10 out of 10 times from the Giants in terms of what they need and the talent. And because the reality is, if they draft Abdul Carter at 3, which they should, if that's how it falls, they have to trade Thibodeau. Like, there's not this world where, they got Burns on the big money deals. You mentioned you sunk assets into him. That's what your regime did. And I don't think the return on Thibodeau is going to be good. I think it'll be a third-round pick. So I don't know how much better it makes the Giants, which is weird to say because he's such a good player. But, man, that is not how they unless they can get somebody to come up and trade for him and get more assets, but we need to actually see that take place.
How much urgency do you think there is for them? How realistic is it to expect Daboll and Shane to produce, a playoff team this year? I mean, they're starting over at quarterback again, but it seemed like they were, possible to get dismissed this offseason. They didn't. So normally it's, whatever year it is here, it's time to get going, but they're kind of stuck starting over to an extent.
Yeah, this timeline makes no sense to me. And I like these hires a lot, by the way. And I feel like I sometimes just throw hands up and go, I was wrong. Like, they just didn't get it done. I think Daboll's a good coach in this league, specifically on offense, obviously. I don't know where he stands as a head coach. I think this roster and the way this roster has been managed has been horrific. And I think that's owner influence. I think that's bad decisions by the GM. And I don't think this is a one-year fix that they're going to get out of. I mean, are they going to take – so they take Abdul Carter at 3, and then they trade back into the end of round 1 for Shadir Sanders or Jackson Dart. Is that enough to save their jobs? Are they playing in front of Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson? The answer is no, they're not. So are you just taking a quarterback to say, hey, here's the plan. We don't want to change offenses. Stay with the plan. It feels like desperate job saving to me, and they made that decision the day they kept these guys, and there's no going back now. It's hard for me to be optimistic about the New York Giants in a one-year window. Not a division with the Eagles. The Commanders' era was pointing up with Jaden Daniels and all the moves they made. I think the Cowboys are going to be much better this year. I'm sorry, but the Giants should far away should be picked to finish in last place again.
We got a long way to go from the top of the draft down to where the Bills are picking at 30. But do you have a couple of favorite ideas, either prospects individually or positional needs for Buffalo, Connor?
Yeah, both. So the last 3-rounder I did for NBC was a couple weeks ago, and I had them walk out of the draft with Kenneth Grant, the nose tackle from Michigan, at 30. And if he's not there, I would take Tyleik Williams, the defensive tackle from Ohio State. So plug up the middle of that defensive line, get a run stuffer that has a little bit of pass rush juice on the table. Grant would. Tyleik's a work in progress. I like Josiah Stewart, the pass rusher from Michigan at 56, just because he's a true designated pass rusher. Stand up, get off the ball. He's one of the most analytically productive pass rushers in the country this year. He's just undersized, but he plays strong. I like the way he plays. Violent with his hands. And then at 62, I like him to grab a safety, and maybe Andrew Akuba from Texas, who has incredible range on the back end, super smart, willing tackler. I mean, if they go offense at one of those picks, sure, I totally understand, but I think the Bills are sitting really pretty where a really good player is going to fall to them at 30 because of the way the draft kind of plateaus. And then picking at 56 and 62, like those are two starters right there. So I think the Bills can beef up this defense literally up front with a defensive lineman in Kenneth Grant or Tyleik Williams, get somebody that can help get you off the field as a pass rusher, and then get a coverage safety that can take away the football on the back end. And this defense would be ready to go to war with those three guys.
Connor, we called you on short notice. Very kind of you to give us your time today. Thanks, and we're all looking forward to the draft.
Always great talking to you guys. Have a good one.
Appreciate it. Connor Rogers, at Connor J. Rogers on the X platform. Bulldog calls it the X, so if he's older than me, I just
follow
say
along.
It.
Yeah,
yep.
Sure. Yep.
He says jump off a bridge.
I've never said jump off a bridge.
Thank goodness, because I would do it.
To anyone.
Cook for Brees.
I know the kind of power I have.
Cook for Brees.
Why bother?
Because it's a huge upgrade. That's why. But yeah, no, that's not going to happen. I don't think Brees Hall is tradable. I don't think any of these guys is tradable in a draft class like this where there's so many good rookie running backs.
And it's coming time to pay.
Right. You have to pay. You make the trade, you're committing to the contract.
Right.
You don't want to. You shouldn't want to give the contract. You could love Brees Hall. You could even love James Cook. But as we've talked about a lot, I think a trade, it's hard for me to see it as realistic. 803-0550. Thanks again to Connor Rogers. We'll look for your calls again after sports on the draft and some other topics we've got planned. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, WGR.
Sabres game night tonight as the Sabres will host Carolina at 7, pregame at 6. And for the Sabres, their playoff hopes are alive by the slimmest of margins. To put it in the simplest terms, if Montreal wins any of their remaining 5 games, Sabres will be eliminated. Sabres can stay alive by winning out and Montreal losing out. But the Canadiens, they are going to get some reinforcements as their first-round pick of last year's draft forward Ivan Demidov is leaving the KHL and signing his 3-year entry-level contract. Montreal also in action tonight at 7 as they take on Detroit. No Bison's game today due to the cold temperatures here in Buffalo. They're going to make this matchup up with Durham tomorrow in a doubleheader starting at 4:35. The Yankees have dropped their third straight. They lose to Detroit 5-0 earlier this afternoon. Currently going on now, the Mets trail the Marlins 2-1 in the first. And then coming up at 6:45, the Blue Jays are in Boston versus the Red Sox. And then in the NBA, the playoffs will get underway later this month. One team, though, going to look very different in the tournament. Denver Nuggets have fired both head coach Michael Malone and general manager Calvin Booth. Both Malone and Booth were a part of the Nuggets' lone championship in 2023. And now for the remainder of this season, it'll be assistant David Edelman, who will serve as interim with Denver sitting as the 4 seed in the West. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Fall in love with Baker Mayfield because of his charisma, cockiness, his self-belief, and then kind of view it differently with Shedeur. I heard a lot of Baker listening to Shedeur and the confidence, and I think it's great. I also loved his answer when he talked about why he threw and when he said, well, there were some teammates of mine that didn't get to go to the combine or didn't get invited, and I knew if I threw, all those teams would come from the NFL and his teammates would have the necessary eyes. I love every part of that answer, because that's leadership.
Dan Orlovsky on Shedeur Sanders. What happens? We find out 2 weeks from Thursday night, or I suppose Friday. I think Friday is possible for him. I think Dart as well. It sounds to me, I'm gullible. I'm also well aware of how we want to change the story, to keep the machine going. All these days and weeks before the draft, it sounds more and more to me like nobody's really into
Sanders.
Sanders, yeah.
Didn't mean to interrupt you.
But it's really more him. Dart is more a conversation about whether he's actually good. But that's almost the same conversation. Like he had, I guess, a great Senior Bowl. But everybody kind of says that at Ole Miss, the offense was just so easy for him to function and to succeed that it might belie like what's really in there. It might be a little bit of an illusion. Mm-hmm. So you do get, if you draft him in the first round, you do get the 5th-year option piece as opposed to waiting until the second day. And that might come into play for the Bills, teams around the Bills at the bottom of the draft order, taking calls from Cleveland, Giants, whoever.
Yeah, the thing that has scared me off of Sanders has nothing to do with his dad or how assured he is or even cocky he is or whatever, because, I think we sort of selectively, we really pick and choose when we consider those things to be attributes and when we don't.
Yeah, I think that was his point.
Right, exactly. So I'm not here for really any of that. I think a few months ago, the way Deion, even during the football season when it was like, shutting down news conferences if anybody asked a question that wasn't like just wearing pom-poms while they were doing it, was like, what are we doing here? Like, are you going to try to do this with your kid in the NFL? Like, just get the hell out of here. I don't feel any of that anymore at all. But the more I've read and seen people who are in the field, hardcore, full-time, analyzing these prospects and talking about them, I just don't think there's enough there. He's got an elite name, certainly an elite profile. I just don't know that there's a great anything there. And furthermore, what I think worries me the most is that coupled with sort of average athleticism, is someone who had a tendency, like, sure, there wasn't a great team around him and there were line problems, but there was a lot of running out of clean pockets that I've read about and seen some visual evidence of myself, and extending plays and getting away with it in college. And I just have a very hard time. Like, if you're not Josh Allen sized and can just shrug guys off you, or elite in the open field and just, getting away from guys and your shiftiness and your speed and just your ability to evade that and extend plays, I don't think he has any of that either. And so I just think that's a very dangerous combination. It's not to say like the habit of extending plays can't be broken for him, and he can't like function very well in an offense where he's getting the ball out of there quickly. But I just think his history, what you've seen a lot of, is him winning that way, and I just do not think that is going to be available to him in any way in the NFL, and that would really worry me about him as a blue chip, like high first round pick. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to be picked at some point, maybe early on Friday even, but I don't know. I'd be really nervous. I like Dart more. As far as like taking a shot on a guy, I feel like I'd feel more comfortable hoping Dart or Milroe are going to develop and hit than Sanders, because I just don't know that there's room for him to grow as an athlete. I think he's who he is.
A dart throw. You look at it. I'm sure I'm the first person to say that.
Take a dart throw on Milroe. Oh wait, on Dart. So I get it. Yeah.
Evan Silva yesterday came on, and we talked about draft prop bets a little bit, and he brought up Milroe at 80-1 to be the second quarterback picked. I think I love that. If you feel that sort of negativity toward the other two, and you go with you on Milroe, like that there might be somebody that gets excited about how fast he is and whatever else, and I don't know whatever else there is, but okay, then maybe he ends up, that combination could mean, like Evan is right to say, 80-1 is, you can't expect it to win. But I wonder if that's possible.
Well, what else there is, and I alluded to it with Connor, and he said like it was probably his favorite interview of all the people he sat with at the Combine. It is like leadership, character, Milroe reads to me a lot like Josh Allen. At least Josh Allen as we've known him to be once he got here. I don't know that I felt that strongly about Allen in this way or heard this much about him in this way, but Milroe is a lot of playing and just a lot of doing everything right and bringing people with you. And that can be scary. Like I've said different guys about different guys. I can't remember who I was talking about in this draft that way. But anyway, teams just fall in love with the idea that this is the guy I want leading my team. I think Milroe has that, and it's a part of the reason why I took the flyer on the bet with you, and because I think teams get seduced by that. So you've got at least one elite trait, if not two. He's got a big arm; it just needs to be harnessed. It's erratic. His mechanics are maybe kind of all over the place. So there's a lot of work to do there. But the arm, I think, is certainly NFL caliber, and the athleticism, the running is, it's top shelf. And I could easily see a team thinking, I'll make him into a passer. I'll send this guy to whoever Josh Allen went to after his rookie year, and we'll do the work.
Jordan
Palmer, and we'll just figure it out. So that's my thinking on Milroe. I love that. I'm not going to drive to Erie to do it, but if you do, let me know, because the idea of finding action on Milroe at that price, being the second quarterback taken, man, I'd love to get in on that.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I think it's live. Him being invited to the draft is not nothing to me. I don't think the league would do that certainly to embarrass a guy. If they don't think there's some chance some team's going to take him on Thursday, why extend that invite?
How do they know who to invite? Like, the Steelers are known as a team that will tell people who they're taking, who they want. They're usually like one of the most predictable teams because they leak. Do the Steelers? Does the league ask the Steelers? Does the league ask everybody?
Yeah, I don't know.
And then they go from there, or they just do it on their own. It would be
I don't
weird
know how it works.
if it's based entirely on likelihood of being drafted in the first round. The league is not paying attention if they just on their own invited Milroe. Like maybe the league would have sources. Do you have to take the question? Do you have to take the survey when the league sends you the survey? Do you have to take it? Give us 5 names, and then maybe they just kind of do the math from all the names they get.
Maybe,
Milroe?
yeah. I don't know. I've never heard anything about how it's decided who gets invited.
How could you have not ever heard?
I don't work hard enough.
All that golf.
My problem. Yeah, that's it. It's all the golf.
It's all that golf.
Yeah.
Sal might have stuff for us today because he's talking to the schedule guy this afternoon.
Oh, the schedule guy.
He might have a nugget. I don't know.
Try to remember. I'll try to remember. You try to.
Okay.
Both of us together, hopefully. Zach, you get in on this. Let's try to remember to ask Sal this question about how the league decides who's going to be invited.
Yeah, I wonder if he knows.
Yeah. Or even has a better guess than I have. Because I have no idea.
I would be happy to place a bet for you. And, you don't even need any money for the jelly bean contest. So it's not like, you have to worry about whether you have enough to bet on Jalen Milroe, because the jelly bean contest at work is free. All you have to do is write down a number and put it on a piece of paper and put it in the box. How many jelly beans are in the jar?
Is that available already? I've not seen the jelly bean.
It's in the building.
Content. It's in the building.
I brought it in thanks to Kelly's Country Store. They gave us the jelly beans, and this year I know how many it is.
Oh.
Last year, someone else on the fun team. I'm on the fun team.
I don't.
Someone else knew.
I got to tell you, I don't. This is a deterrent to me participating.
Why?
Well, because I'm going to win, and then people are going to think I cheated.
Oh well, you didn't. You're not going to cheat. So tough for them if you win. And we don't know what you win yet. I mean, you might win the jelly beans if that's interesting to you. I've never enjoyed jelly beans as a food. No. Is it even? It's food. Quote food.
Sure.
Jelly beans. I shouldn't say that. Here I'm mentioning Kelly's. And
careful.
They're great. They're great.
Yeah.
So anyway, I forced that one because why would you need to pay for to be in the jelly bean guessing contest? Therefore, you have money to spend on a Milroe bet. That was the premise of the.
Yes.
Thing.
Right. Yeah.
That was the premise.
Thanks. That was flimsy.
Sal coming up at 5. Sabres and Hurricanes downtown tonight. Pregame at 6. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. WGR. Join us for our annual pre-draft special next Thursday, April 17th from 4 to 6:30, streaming live on YouTube. The latest insights, mock drafts, predictions, guest appearances, Jeremy, Joe, Nate, Sal. It's all presented by your Upstate Honda dealers. Visit your local Upstate Honda dealer today for excellent deals on the entire Honda lineup, including the all-new Honda Passport.
Is it next Thursday also the final Sabres game of the season?
Sounds right.
I think it is, right? They're hosting Philly, right? Toronto Tuesday, Philly Thursday, I think is what I've got in my head.
Sounds right.
All right.
They continue their heroic march toward over 79.5. They're at 74.
And you need over?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm a fan.
You're gonna get that.
I'm not a hater.
Yeah, right.
I need 6 points in 6 games. Which?
6 games. Tonight is game 77.
It's not a lock.
No.
But they've been, doing well.
They've been hot. Yeah.
Do you know who the current Stanley Cup favorite is? In the odds.
The current Stanley Cup favorite is... I'm going to... I want to say Vegas.
Dallas.
You want to know about my process?
Yeah.
I like Dallas. I'm rooting for Dallas. I have Dallas. They're the first of the 4 that I need to win. I have a championship parlay out there, and Dallas is first up. I was looking for the easier path, and Vegas is a 1 seed. They'll play they're not the 1 seed in the West. They're not going to catch Winnipeg, but they're going to win their division, so they'll play the St. Louis Blues at this point, is what it looks like. And the Blues have been hot, but they're not locked into a Dallas-Colorado death grip match, right? They're not 2-3 in the Atlantic. Those are really the ones that are pretty brutal. I don't know, like 2-3. Carolina, New Jersey, I guess is good, but it really lost a lot with Jack Hughes being out. So that's why I was thinking not Dallas, because they've got to deal with Colorado most likely in the first round.
And Winnipeg then second.
Right.
So what are they telling us here? They're that good?
Maybe they're telling us that they believe that they're going to get Heiskanen back in time for the first round to begin, because that's a huge piece. I mean, he is an elite. Imagine we're getting ready for the playoffs. All right, no, let's go all the way. Imagine the Sabres have 106 points. They've had this monster season. But the playoffs are coming, and Dahlin is question. We don't know if he's going to be back in time for the playoffs. Like, oh my God,
it's Tim Connolly.
Like, that's Heiskanen. This is a massive, massive impact.
Well, not on the same level as this,
right?
But that is what happened with Connolly. He played the last 2 games, or 1. He played the last 2 games, I think. In Washington, he came back. He missed the whole season until the last 2, and then they had him for that Islander series, which I hated. I hated that Islander series. Oh. There's never been a good Sabres-Islanders game. They put it to the test in the playoffs. It was all bad. Remember the 5th game when they clinched that series, and they were up 4-1 or something in that game at home and almost lost the lead.
Got tight, yeah. Like Miro had a great chance at the horn to tie it. Yeah, they hung on for that.
It's exactly what they did.
They really did. They hung on.
Beat the Rangers and almost never have been heard from since.
They were really on the ropes against the Rangers too.
Oh yeah.
Right? I mean, they were about to go down 3-1. Right? If they lose, right? Because then they...
No, 3-2.
3-2, sorry. And going back to New York for Game 6, that's right. So they won the game, took the 3-2 lead, and then went there and won it. Yeah, that's right. Sorry. But still, going on the road, down in the series, chance to get eliminated in New York, if not for Drury, and then eventually if again off.
I was looking at some old hockey cards last night and remembered how in the 70s and into the 80s, every card was shot in Washington. The Capitals are in every picture. The Capitol Center.
In Landover, Maryland.
And, sometimes the shots were kind of pretty boring in the 70s usually, so you wouldn't always see another player. They're not all action. There's guys standing there.
Right. They're on the ice for a face-off or something, or a whistle is blown, and they take a shot of a guy. Just sort of, yeah. They were game shots, but there was rarely action. The cards I remember, if we're talking about the same ones.
Yeah, 70s. Then into the 80s, I was looking up some Gretzkys I have last night, with Gretzky being in the news lately, just kind of taking stock. And I found a stack of 81, 82 Topps Gretzky. And it's his third year, so it's not like the most amazing card for value. He's sort of like hunched over a little bit with, two hands on the stick, like before a face-off maybe. And like Washington, somebody from Washington is in the background. Like, oh yeah, that's when it hit me. that was used to be always the case. Always. It's always in Washington for some reason. I probably should know why. Maybe it's just simple it was more efficient just to have the card pictures taken in games in Washington. Why would you need to move around, I guess? We will talk to Sal next. Maybe he's got something on the schedule. He's supposed to have talked to his guy with the league, Mike North, today about that. And we'll talk some draft as well. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. Pregame for Sabres Hurricanes is at 6 tonight on WGR.
Caller
Sabres game night tonight as the Buffalo Sabres host Carolina at 7. Pregame coming up in an hour at 6. And for the Sabres, their playoff hopes are alive by the slimmest of margins. To put it in the simplest terms, if Montreal wins any of the remaining 5 games, the Sabres will be eliminated. Buffalo can stay alive by winning out, and Montreal losing out. Montreal also in action tonight at 7 when they take on Detroit. But bad news for the Sabres. The Canadiens are getting reinforcements. Their first-round pick of last year's draft forward, Ivan Demidov, is leaving the KHL and signing his 3-year entry-level contract. Some other notable matchups tonight. Florida hosts Toronto, and the Senators are in Columbus versus the Blue Jackets. Those also at 7. At 8 o'clock, the Stars have Vancouver in town. Then 9:30 sees Colorado hosting Las Vegas. To the Bisons, no game today. It's postponed due to cold weather here in Buffalo. They'll make up this matchup with Durham tomorrow in a doubleheader starting at 4:35. Today, the Yankees drop their 3rd straight. They lose to Detroit 5-0. The Mets currently trail the Marlins 2-1 in the 3rd. And the Blue Jays, they are in Boston versus the Red Sox. That game will get going at 6:45. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Sal Capaccio.
I make a special carpaccio for you, right?
Oh, now that sounds really good.
Oh, you like?
Hey, get away from my wife with that.
What's the matter, carpaccio no good? What do you do now? They don't like a carpaccio. They like carpaccio.
On WGR.
I make a carpaccio for you.
Sports Radio 550.
Okay, I'm sure I'm not alone in wondering, what did Sal get that he can tell us? I don't know. Might not be anything. You've got to be careful with these things. If you're talking about sort of inside information, I don't know how much you can really share. Sometimes I need to think it through. It's possible that Sal just got off the phone with his schedule guy, Mike North. So we find out. Sal, should I slow down a little bit here? I don't know. What was your conversation like?
It was great. We just interviewed Mike North, schedule maker. He's actually, his title is Vice President of Broadcast Planning for the National Football League. It's always a really awesome podcast interview. I did it for several years on my own, and now Matt Bove's a part of it with me on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. We went for an hour and a half with Mike North today, guys. It was amazing. It's going to drop tomorrow morning. We'll have it on my YouTube channel at Sal Sports. We'll also have it, where people pod and get their Always Game Day in Buffalo podcast. And that being said, a lot of things we covered from a league standpoint, from a Bills standpoint. Truly, he doesn't know the schedule right now. He said that that won't happen for another few weeks. They wait for the draft. They're definitely waiting on where Aaron Rodgers signs to get a few things kind of situated as well. No doubt about that. One thing I think is very important that I learned, there is no rule against having divisional matchups internationally. They've done it before. And when I think about that, there are 7 international games. The Bills are the possible opponent in 4 of them, not just one, like we talked about Ireland. The Dolphins are hosting in Spain. The Steelers are hosting in Ireland. The Browns are hosting in London. The Jets are hosting in London. And the Bills are scheduled to go to those teams, all four of those teams this year on their schedule. So everything's on the table.
I don't know, but if that is live, I would want to guess it wouldn't be London because they've played in London twice and nowhere else. But are we still too small sample size here to consider that relevant, in your opinion?
I think that's too small to consider relevant, Mike. I think if you go back and look historically, some teams, you might find trends like that. It's just the way it falls. I don't know if they would necessarily think about it in that manner right now, judged on some ways that Mike describe things and how they go about picking a lot of different things, not just international games. And it's really more about competitive imbalance when it comes to a lot of the stuff that they do think about more than the kinds of things you're talking. But that said, you might want to spread the love around with a guy like Josh Allen. Yeah. I'll just give you a preview of one thing I said to him, and I did ask, and this is kind of something that's just sticking out to me from the hour and a half conversation. I said, and I asked Mike North, hey, we've been here for years talking about how Josh Allen's stardom, right? And we know that he's risen up to must-see TV. And now he's got Madden cover last year, MVP stamped to his name, and he's marrying a world-famous actress. Does that elevate him even further in the eyes of the league and putting him on TV? And he said, absolutely.
What that actually would mean is hard to figure out.
right.
Correct.
They're not going to play at night every week.
I got to tell you, I'm a little bit shook up by this, that there a possibility for as many as 4 of these overseas games. I don't know, maybe if you guys have had the same experience, not that it should be taken as gospel or anything, but I felt like most of what I've been reading and hearing about that was that they were all but eliminated except for the Steeler game. That there were potential opponents lined up, or that something didn't make sense, and hearing that they now I'm expecting them to play a game over there at some point. If there a possibility for 4 of them,
it's Dolphins, Jets, Steelers, and what? Sorry,
Browns.
The Browns play where?
London.
Okay. So the Steelers are the
So are
only
the
game
Jets.
that's right. The Steelers are the only one of the 4 that's not in London.
No, Dolphins are in Madrid, Spain.
Oh, okay. There were 2. What were the Dolphins?
So I would tell you this, Bulldog. I'm still with you. I still think chances are much less likely to play anything other than the Steelers. But I just wanted to make sure that people know that is not out of the question, that it could be a division game. And he said what they do is they go to some of these teams and they say, okay, you're playing. They'll go to the Dolphins and say, is there a game or is there anything what do you think about all the different opponents? He said some teams say, no way, no how, do not put that team over there. We want that home game. Some teams are like, we'll play whatever you give us. Doesn't really matter. We're going over there anyway. It doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. Some may say, hey, we'd really like this group of teams because that'll be for whatever reason. So it really comes down to a little bit of that as well.
Okay. Do you know from this conversation how many divisional games have been played in Europe? When the Bills played in Toronto, there were a couple, but I'm not sure I want to count that. I'm just sort of trying here to remember an international game that was a division game, and I can't.
He mentioned 2 of them. I think they might have been both AFC South matchups because the Jags being in London.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. I think he said Colts Jags one year, maybe it was Colts. It seemed to me like Colts Jags Titans were like in some sort of rotation there, and he did mention them. I can't remember, but I did ask him that. Hey, I said refresh my memory. Have you done that? Now I will say, after everything is all said and done, I still think Pittsburgh would be the most likely in Ireland. I don't know if it is likely because there's still a whole handful of games there, and you're talking about Josh Allen at 9:30 on a Sunday morning, especially if it's against Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if that fits kind of the window where they want to put it, but I would also tell you guys, I mean, it's clear as day that the Bills are very much in the mix to be playing on one of these holidays.
Sure.
Thanksgiving, Black Friday, or Christmas, given how everything's falling now.
Sure. And I think Thanksgiving would be the least likely.
Because they've already played in every window on Thanksgiving.
They've done it 3 times. They don't play Detroit or Dallas either. So it'll only be the night game unless something changes there.
That's right.
And Christmas could be anything. My guess has been that they play the first game on Christmas at home, and then the Chiefs who want to play on Christmas would play like later that day. They would not play each other, I'm thinking, but I don't know. All of this is just guessing for my part. Anything on week 1?
Bills-wise or league-wise?
Either,
or
anything.
Eagles-wise?
Absolutely.
We've talked about it all.
Anything. Absolutely. The most trivial thing you got. I'll take it.
Sure. Okay. So we threw up a graphic, and again, you can go watch it at Sal Sports when it drops, and I threw up a graphic, and it's got all of the Eagles' home opponents this year. And I said, give me a case for every one of these teams. And he went through and gave a great case, so you never know. Give a great case for all their different opponents that they could be playing at home to open up the season, the NFL season. He mentioned he did kind of sneak in there, and again, he's just kind of saying a lot of things, talking about Rodgers. If Rodgers, goes to Pittsburgh, and we were talking about the Ireland thing. He goes, well, does that work better on a primetime, or is that a week 1, 4:25 game? And I'm like, ooh, geez, is that Steelers at Bills like a few years ago? Rodgers coming here, you know what I mean? Or Bills Steelers, I mean, sorry about that. That would be a road game. So yeah, we talked about stuff like that, and also not like the trends of week 1. There have been teams that have opened up on the road a lot or at home a lot. And again, he said it's not really. Yeah, there comes a time where you might say, you know what, it's time we maybe shift things up for this team. But there's the Bills have been the home team last year. They got to be a road team in week 1. 2 years in a row on the road. Doesn't work like that. If it becomes a real big trend, they will look at that, or if it's some sort of competitive imbalance.
If you were the Dolphins, if you guys were the Dolphins, would you want the home Bills game for the game in Spain? Like,
No.
do you want the Bills in your stadium, or do you want to not play the Bills in your stadium because the crowd is not with you?
Oh, good. I still think I'd rather have them in my place.
So the game you'd want, like this will be us at some point. The game you'd want for your home game in Europe would be like the least interesting game on the schedule.
I think so.
In general?
Yeah.
Sal, you agree?
I agree about the Bills because here's why. If you think that you might get them at home and it's really hot and, you can take advantage of that, right? Like, you want that to happen. So I don't want, if I'm the Dolphins, I'm like, no, give me the Bills because I'll take my chances. That's a home game early in the season, and the Bills have to deal with the elements. But I think that's a good question because the Bills fans do take over that stadium a lot.
Cleveland, I'd want the Bills at home. That's a fun semi-rivalry. Bills play at Cleveland.
Now they don't. Just so everybody's clear, it's not that they don't pick their opponent. Now that you're suggesting it, it's not like you do say to the Dolphins, you pick your opponent, but they do gauge what they feel about it, and they weigh that with everything that goes into all of their other considerations.
Yeah, there have to be conversations. Like if you're an owner, especially, or just a GM, somebody higher up, you're Pete Gwelly. Like, we'd really like this game to not be that. Whatever it is.
Right. Don't take this game away from us.
Yeah, I think you'd be heard. Maybe you'd still not get what you want, but I think you'd at least be heard. There have to be, I guess there don't have to be. Okay.
But I'd be surprised if there's not some mechanism there for teams to be heard, like you're saying. Whether how much consideration it gets and is it a deal breaker, like Sal's saying, I would say, probably not.
Like the Browns having Buffalo. Allen's played there once, it was a long time ago. If I were the Browns, I'd want that game, in my stadium. Again, it's kind of cool, but maybe it doesn't come down to what you're saying. It doesn't come down to necessarily
their preference,
what they want. Right. Yep. Okay.
We did touch on the possibility of the 18th game down the road.
Good.
The conversations they're already having in the league office about how to handle that, if that's the case. Mike is a fan of the NFL and a fan of the schedule, and he's a fan of watching the games, but he also is an employee and has to think about the schedule and what's going to maximize the windows of viewerships and things like that. So he had his own thoughts about, how to handle that 18th game. And it was really interesting because the 17th game is based on where you finish in the standings. And he said the 18th game, as a schedule maker, they'd probably prefer that, because you're getting great matchups again, 1 versus 1 or 2 versus 2. But at some point, does that become a little bit of too much of a gap that now you're playing 4 games where a team finished in first has other first place games and a team finished in fourth has other fourth place games, and at some point maybe that's just a little too much competitive imbalance.
That'll be a good discussion. It's more. I don't know the math on this intuitively. It's more like it was back like in the 80s, where you had the last place team wouldn't cross over to the NFC and play the same teams as the rest of the teams in the division. They would just play the last or 2 5-team divisions on each side, and they would just play those teams. Like when the Bills were bad in the mid 80s, they would have had 4 games special against the other 3 fifth place teams in the league. 2 against, like, they played Kansas City home and home in one of those years.
That's right, they did.
Because they were both the last place teams, and then they wouldn't have gone, like, they didn't play Dallas for a number of years because they finished last at the wrong time. I think it was Dallas. There were a couple examples of that. So that's a pretty good example of this. I think, like what you said at the beginning there, Sal, the easiest thing to do would just be to slot another one from the NFC and just put it on the road. So this year, maybe you'd be the Bills playing Philadelphia at home, which they are, and Detroit away. Say something like that versus what the Patriots would face, which is, the Giants and the Bears or something like that.
Yeah, add it into everything else. I hear you. That might be interesting to pay attention to when we get there. And I'll say when, no longer if, because we're going to get there.
I agree with that.
Right.
Do you ever
I think so too, Mike.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Please.
I gave you a bit of some credit and a shout out here, and I like to say, hey, our buddy Mike Schopp on WGR, he's a schedule geek like us. I said, Mike asked me a question. I'm going to ask you. What are the chances of all 4 of these home games the Bills have? The Ravens, the Eagles, the Bengals, and the Chiefs. And how many would be at Sunday at 1 o'clock? And we were debating if any would be. Now, again, the schedule's not set, and even if it was, I don't think Mike would reveal it. I'm just here to tell you, I got the feeling that none of them will be.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, when we talked about this the first time, you got me to one at the most. You got me to one at the most.
Yep.
So that's good. Do you ever talk to him about the Week 17 division matchup thing? That all games for the last several years have been within the divisions. I've never
Week 18, you mean?
Yeah, Week 18.
Week
right.
17. Week 18, Game 17. Sorry.
Right, the season finale. I've never fully accepted that that's actually good. I mean, you could draw up any schedule you want before you made that rule. And are we sure that it didn't work at least as well? I don't know. The last couple of years, it seems like we've had a. That's not true either because Minnesota-Detroit happened. But it isn't always easy to pick a game for that Sunday night. And you're sort of boxed in maybe a little bit, potentially, by only having division matchups. Does that seem right to you?
Yeah, last year, we actually talked about this a little bit more last year, but even it did come up a bit this year, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
They like having those division games. And part of the way that we talked about it today was the context of the Bills' final year in this stadium and how they think about what that looks like at the end of the year. And he said, well, you're definitely getting a division game Week 18, but is that going to be home? We don't know. Is that going to be on the road? We don't know. So there's no, they are going to be thoughtful, I guess, a little bit about the stadium closing, but it's nothing that they're really going to be building a schedule around because let's be honest, guys, Bills are probably playing more games than what's in the regular season in that stadium anyway at the end of the year.
The odds would favor that, but you never know. What if they're a 5 because they win 11 games and somebody else wins 12 or something like that? Then that's it. So I would think that the finale would be a home game because of the stadium, just in case. But in New England, when they were closing whatever it was called then, Sullivan Stadium or Schaefer Stadium, the year of the Tuck Rule. They made the playoffs, and the Tuck Rule game ends up being the last game played there. But their season finale was at Carolina. That's back before this division rule that we have now.
Yeah. So I would think. Well, I mean, you can do this. You can do it Week 17. Doesn't have to be Week 18. But if you're looking to have any kind of ceremony and stuff, recognizing that there is the very real possibility and expectation that there will be at least a playoff game played there, you're not closing down the stadium after a playoff game, are you? I mean, it's a worst case scenario. It's the Bengal game. You lose to the Bengals. There's no send off. Right? There's no... I don't know what we're talking about. I mean, they're not going to take stuff off the walls or anything. There's no banners to lower like there was at the Odd. But I'm just thinking if you want to have something to commemorate the last regular season game in the stadium...
It is in the regular season.
It has to be in the regular season. You're not doing it. You win a playoff game, you're going on to next week. It's not the place for it. So, again, you could do that in your 16th game of the season. It does not have to be the final game of the year, but I don't know. I'd want to bet on them playing at home Week 18.
Me too.
And then having whatever there will be, as far as pomp and circumstance about the stadium.
Yep, me too.
Yeah, I get it. Real quick, there's a couple other real interesting teams-wise. I think Washington's in that up-and-coming spot as you'd probably think about. I think about them for Week 1 maybe because of this, but I'm not sure. But I think we're going to see quite a bit of them this year after they what they did last year.
Good.
And the one I kind of blew my mind team that he mentioned because he said, look at their schedule. It's really good. And I think he even said maybe they were a little better than people thought last year or something, even though they only won 5 games, is the Giants. I'm like, what? He said, not that they're going to put them on prime time every week, but it's kind of interesting that he kind of brought them up, the Giants and
the Giants have a schedule where they have a lot of marquee opponents, and they will be 8-point underdogs in every one or higher.
Right.
Are these games going to be close with the Giants? Maybe not, but.
Sal, if that's a wrap on the schedule for now, Mike, I don't want to.
Fine.
Okay. Make sure. I gotta get the go sign. We were talking in here earlier about Jalen Milroe being reportedly invited to the draft and him accepting. And it had us wondering how the league decides who to invite. Like, are they just watching mock drafts? Because if that's all they're doing, Jalen Milroe doesn't really belong. I'm sure they're not out to embarrass the kid. And in fact, I thought I had read or heard something about them being maybe more careful about inviting too many guys because they don't want to embarrass anyone, have them left sitting there in a green room, all night long. But Milroe being invited is very interesting to me. Do you have any idea, any insight at all into how the league decides who to invite to the draft?
Yeah, I don't remember where or when I heard this or read it, but I do know that I have heard this before, that that is a thoughtful process that, like you said, they're not looking to embarrass anybody. I think that they do take into consideration what they've heard, things they've talked, the people they've talked to around the league, and believe where the person may be drafted. And that's an indication that he's probably going maybe higher than what people expect, at least from what people in the league who do these things think. It doesn't have to happen that way, obviously, right? But yes, I think it's not just the player. It is the conversation around teams and what they think about the player and where he may be drafted.
Okay. What else?
Where's he? Where isn't he? See, what did I read today? I think Kuiper said he's a really great fit for the Giants, right? Something like that. I read, and I know that people have kind of thought him with the Steelers as a big fit,
right?
Or the Jets, I think, makes sense. Similar, somewhat similar traits to the other guy, Fields, the starter. I just think he hasn't been. It's been said he hasn't been mocked in the first round very often. So we're trying to figure out what do they know, and it's maybe something. I want to follow up on this too. Yesterday we talked to Evan Silva from Establish the Run, who brought up having an 80-1 ticket on Milroe to be the second quarterback picked. And Bulldog and I talked about that earlier, going to Pennsylvania or wherever I have to go to make draft bets. And a listener points out that it's already down to 14-1, and I believe it. Like when Establish the Run sort of plants a flag, or they just on the podcast somebody mentions something like that, they have a lot of clout, and it doesn't take much to move those lines.
Right.
So we might have missed our chance.
Especially if he got that price before it was known he was going to the draft.
Yes,
I mean that's a huge factor.
That probably would have at least as much to do with it.
Right.
That news.
Yeah.
So. All right. Very good, Sal. Thanks for your time. I'm good if you guys are.
All good, buddy.
Yeah, for sure. Tomorrow we will have everything up tomorrow. So people can obviously, like I said, listen or watch, however you want to do that, for the Mike North podcast. I know it's some people aren't as much into it, but we are. And he's just so generous with his time for an hour and a half to do that with Matt and I. So I just definitely think there's a lot of stuff in there that people can learn a little bit about the operational side of it and maybe get some clues about this year as well.
Good. We'll plan to talk to you again on Thursday.
You got it, guys. Thanks.
All right, there's Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline. His appearances with us are always brought to you by New York's only outlet liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet?
Carlin Hartman's calling in next, associate head coach from the Florida Gators, who won the national championship last night. He did the thing again. You guys want me? Sure. Let's go.
Love it.
So we'll talk to Grand Island's Carlin Hartman after the update. Sabres Hurricanes pregame at 6 on WGR.
We know you
The sportsman who comes in all the time. the sportsman who comes in all the time.
Florida leads it by 2. Uzan going to go. Uzan, give it up. Cryer, 6 seconds, 5 seconds, short. He walked. He can't touch it. He can't. 1 second, and it's over. Florida is back on top of the college basketball world.
Everybody loves a buzzer beater. I got to ask Carlin this. I mean, you win a national championship, you'll take it any way you can get it. Carlin, everybody loves a buzzer beater, but isn't there something awesome about winning like that, where you're up and they have a chance and they can't get a shot off? You got to love – I'm sorry, I'm going to let you talk. You got to love the block and then the loose ball. Like, the guy can't touch the ball. He knows that. And your other guy comes in – I don't know names. Your other guy comes in there and dives. It's just – congratulations. Carlin Hartman, Associate Head Coach, Florida Gators, national champs.
I mean, so that 19 seconds was probably the longest of my career. I think everybody in the staff and players would say the same thing. So we did a great job defensively of keeping everybody in front. They were trying to get Cryer a shot, then that didn't work, and then they tried to get Sharp on a down screen, and Walter did an amazing job of closing out, and Sharp kind of panicked. Now, Sharp has a low release when he shoots it, so I think Walter's closeout really startled him, and then once he let the ball go and he left his feet, he couldn't touch it again, or else it would have been a violation. So the kid that you were thinking about that dove for the ball, Alex Condon, he's diving, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, hold on to the ball, hold on to the ball. We have the possession arrow. And then literally the next thing that happens is the buzzer goes off, and I'm like, oh, you know, we won.
You got to be careful there. The guy diving has to be careful he doesn't get called for a travel, too. Like, you want him to dive on the ball, ideally. Say there's 3-4 seconds left. There was less. But he's on the ball and his feet off the ground, maybe.
Yeah, 3.5 seconds left. And now if he turns over with possession, that's a travel. But the way he dove for the ball, he was still belly first, and so it wouldn't have been a violation.
Okay.
But, I mean, it's like euphoric because we really and credit to Houston. Like, they're an amazing program. Kelvin Sampson's all-time great coach. And we were just kind of like playing from behind most of the game. And we only had the lead for, I think it was like 1 minute and 17 seconds of game time. And we took the lead on a free throw late, and we got another free throw to extend it to 2. And that last free throw that Aberdeen made was huge because now they, were either going to shoot a 3 for the win or they're going to, try to send it into overtime, and they went for the win.
Yeah. How many times what was it said in a huddle before that final sequence that you had the possession error? When you mentioned that, does that get repeated 5 times, 20 times? Is it all one person says in a huddle like that, reminding every guy we have the arrow?
Yeah, that's a good question, Bulldog. We are constantly reminding our guys in time and score situations at the end of games how many timeouts we have, what possession arrow, whom to possibly foul. So we're repeating these things over and over and over again, and it actually happened on Saturday night against Auburn where we had a possession arrow, and we just told our guys, just do a great job of, trying to get the ball, whether it be a loose ball or a rebound. Worst case scenario, you have the possession arrow, we'll get the ball back, or you'll have a timeout. So it's just constantly being repeated over and over again. And, we have a good group, a veteran group, and our guys did an unbelievable job, especially the last 10 minutes of that game, of essentially shutting Houston down. They had 4 turnovers, if I'm not mistaken, in the last 3 minutes of the game, and they didn't get a shot off their last 3 possessions.
So good. You won like 4 games in the tournament this way, from behind. Like, such a great sign of a team. Carlin, when I was coming up, learning stuff about doing this job, interviews and that, asking somebody how does it feel was always like frowned upon. Like, you wouldn't want to ask that question. You'd want to ask a better question than how does it feel. Yeah, I watch sports, constantly, of course. They never ask how does it feel. They always try so hard to ask something like too specific, in my opinion, or just kind of too esoteric.
Yeah.
We've overcorrected. How the pressure's on you. How does it feel to be a national champion?
Incredible. Like, it's everything that you think it would be, and even then some. Like, we're just looking back at the highlights of our students on campus.
Yeah.
And in our arena, it's 11,000 seats, and they were all students, and it was packed. And to see their reaction was incredible. And like I said, you and I, we obviously text a lot, Mike, and you were looking at my reaction at the end of that game.
Yes.
The very first thing that I did, because I gave you my what I said vocabulary-wise, and I won't be on air. And I turned, and I looked at my family, and I was just like, "Oh my God, we won!" And I'm just looking at them, and they're in the stands, they're looking back at me, and it's just a euphoric thing because you started kind of like. And right now it's kind of starting to hit me. I'm finally at home. We had a really nice home. We had a nice welcoming from our student body. And other things will be happening, obviously. But whatever you can imagine, it's been some. And obviously you and I have known each other for quite some time, Mike. I was a huge basketball fan, obviously growing up and watching all the Final Fours, seeing Michigan win when we were in high school, seeing Duke get their first one, Indiana, all those, different programs. And to be a part of something like that on that particular stage, it's just truly, remarkable.
I remember, I got to think of the year here, just quickly, sitting at a lunch table with you and Cliff Scott one year, and it was like around the time of the brackets, and I think it was Todd Day's Arkansas team. Like, I was just a junkie for this stuff. I'm like, that's my team. And you guys are like, really? Like that? And I think I got it with Arkansas, but it doesn't matter.
No, you did. They didn't win with Todd Day, but they ended up winning a little bit later on, with
40 minutes of hell.
Right. That was like the building block. Those late 80 teams that were the building block for their championship run.
I guessed right then on your reaction. You were just kind of barely in the shot with one of the camera angles from courtside, and I thought I saw you put your hands on your head and turn away, which is interesting because, a lot of times everybody's going to just sort of jump. You have to jump up at the final. You're sort of like down in a dugout on the bench there and, rush the players on the court or at the other end of the court. So I wondered if maybe your family was sitting on the other side because it did look like you turned and looked toward, them as it turns out. So cool.
They were right there. They were right there. And we always have after every game, always point to them, whether win or loss or so forth. And that just, just to see their reaction. And once they got on the court, then they got really real. So, our guys were just going crazy, our coaches staff. Will said you have to do a good job, too, as a coach. Players, we don't really expect it, but, like, in a situation like that, you want to be respectful to the other team's coaches. So you have that quick reaction, and then you turn and you try to, be respectful for, the other opposing team. So I had to kind of get myself together after about, 5 or 6 seconds and turn around and go and shake the Houston coach's hands. And a lot of those guys I know very well. So, I was very considerate of their feelings.
Yeah, good.
I'm curious about Saturday night. I know it must feel like it was a month ago now with what last night and probably today has been like. But I'm curious what Saturday night after you win your game, coming back like you did, is that, and forgive me, I was not sitting in front of a TV all night, so if it was obvious that you guys were in the stands watching the game, then forgive me, but is that like, okay, let's go watch Duke now and Houston, see what we're dealing with, or is it more like, let's get back to the hotel and get some rest and have meetings or whatever? Like, what is Saturday night like after you beat Auburn?
Great question. The latter. It's the latter because, those are long games. Like, in the regular season, you're literally probably playing for about 2 hours. When you get to the NCAA tournament and then you keep on advancing, the timeouts get a little bit longer, the half times get longer. Yep. And so we're out there, we're playing for like 2.5, maybe 2 hours and 45 minutes. So we don't even live scout. We could have stayed for the Duke game. We could have had an area where we're just watching them and, see what kind of calls we can pick up. But it's like, no, let's just get back. Let's just get to the hotel. Let's get off our feet and let's, get ourselves prepared and ready. And again, the further you advance and the more media attention you get. So they open up the locker room, for media for our players and coaches, and then Coach Golden and our players, they'll go and do their press conferences, and then national media comes in and they're talking to all of us and so forth. So we are literally probably after a game, like let's say Saturday night, we're in there for like an extra hour to an hour and a half. And if we played, I think it was like 5:50 Central Time, we got done about 8:20. We still probably didn't get back to the hotel until around 11 p.m. Yeah. And by that point, we're watching the last 5 minutes of the Duke-Houston game. You know, so it's just a lot of different obligations and everything. Nobody's going to sit there and complain about it, especially when you're in our position. We're all blessed to do it, but it's a lot. It can be very taxing. And so, Bulldog, honestly, we leave. We'll end up watching the game, rewatching it as a staff, and just trying to prepare our guys for a one-day prep.
I've got two more quick questions. Today, the heroes welcome. So tomorrow, you're on the recruiting trail, right? That's what you do tomorrow. You sort of get on an early flight to Little Rock or someplace and start talking about get to work on next year.
I'll be honest, I ain't going nowhere. I'm just being straight up. Like we will get on the phone with guys. This is a time where we're going to start talking to our current players, the guys that we want to come back, and then we obviously have some holes in the backcourt that we need to fill. We'll end up doing that, through the portal with maybe one other older guy. But we got some guys in the house that are going to be playing a lot bigger roles next year, and we got 2 high school guys coming in. So we're not in as dire straits as other programs. We should be, again, really good next year, but we will be, going out and looking for a couple of really high-end guards.
I know when I'm playing video games, as soon as I win the championship, I'm right to next year. I know in my case, I get right after it. In Dynasty mode. And you're being honored on the island in a couple of weeks. April 24th, you'll be up here for that. It's also the same night as the NFL draft, I believe, that first round. Wow. But that's exciting, right? I mean, especially now it's even better.
Yeah, I guess I got a little bit more of a story to tell.
Yeah, right.
I've got to have a pretty good, life and everything, and I was going to talk about that, but now I can add on to it. So, it's just been a great ride, been a blessing. I've had a lot of different media outlets I've talked to from Buffalo and so forth, and I'm a proud Western New Yorker at the end of the day. I never am going to forget where I came from. I'm never going to, forget all the life lessons and so forth, my friends like yourself and everything. And, this journey is not just about me. It's, everybody. I try to include everybody as best as I possibly can. So I'm extremely excited about the honor at Grand Island, but also what we've done here at Florida.
Well, we are really grateful to be included in this small way to talk to you here twice in a couple of weeks, especially after last night, Carlin. Really cool.
Thanks, Bulldog. Appreciate you.
Congrats again. We'll see each other in a couple of weeks.
Look forward to it, Mike.
Thank you. Carlin Hartman, associate head coach at Florida, national champs. Some interesting stuff there, right? Your question was great about after the game.
Yeah.
Somebody on that staff is watching that game. He's not. Somebody's job. You got a lot of people. Somebody's job is just tracking Houston Duke. That's got to be. But yeah, I guess it's his point about how much longer the games are in the tournament and the Final Four is excellent. The Sabres are home to Carolina tonight. We'll have pregame at 6. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
More of Schopp and the Bulldog coming up live
The sportsman who comes in all the time. The sportsman who comes in all the time.
Find the year for that lunch table discussion. Because I know Arkansas, I felt dumb after. I know Arkansas didn't win it, or Texas, but I just remember sitting with them talking about the tournament, and those were teams I liked, and it worked. They won. Maybe they won the regional or something. It worked out, is all. I just was friends with, I was not on the basketball team, but I was already kind of on my way in this career, like keeping stats and announcing and doing stuff around them, and they accepted me. Like, Carlin was one of the best players in the area, but he was such a nice kid too. Like, what a combination.
And you mentioned Cliff Scott. I mean, he went on to play quarterback at UB. So you were friends with two of the biggest wheels in your high school. It sounds like. I mean, I would assume if they are that level of athlete, that they would have been pretty popular kids.
Sure, and Cliff had football too, like you said.
Yeah,
but it was such a fun time. They were good. Didn't end up winning sectionals, but there was a playoff game against Niagara Falls, at Niagara Falls. And they were tough. They're always good, Niagara Falls. They're always tough. And I will never forget that night. Being on the team bus, like, if there were a point spread, Grand Island would have been an underdog by a few points at least. Maybe they had split with them. I don't even know if they'd done that. And sitting at the table for that game in that gym, it's the old high school.
Is this LaSalle High School?
No,
or
not LaSalle.
Okay.
LaSalle was even better.
Right.
This is probably 89.
Okay.
And the Falls were good. Willie Cauley was the center who Carlin had to deal with on the Falls. It's funny how I remember these names. I think he might have played at Duquesne. Anyway, so I remember Carlin. I don't know if I can tell this. I'm gonna. On the bus, Grand Island wins the game in overtime, and so everybody's just elated. And I remember talking either that night or the next day in school or something, talking to him about Cauley, who was bigger than Carlin. And Carlin said how all he would ever say is "get off me." That was his Cauley for the Falls. Carlin said would just constant. That's all he would ever say. "Get off me." The whole night. Great times. They lost at maybe Hamburg that year, but we'll never forget that team, Coach Roth, and even though I didn't play, I felt like I was a part of it. Sabres and the Hurricanes tonight. Pregame coming up.
Tick a box. I mean, I don't know I don't think I've ever talked to a national championship winning college coach before. I mean, he's not the head coach, whatever. Like that was awesome. I love that we got to do it last week. You were sitting in here during a break, like, oh, here's Carlin again. He wants to call. Like, yeah, absolutely. He just won the national title. Let's
last
do it.
night.
Yeah, right.
If he wanted to talk in 2 months, we would do it.
Right. That's right.
It was literally last night.
Right.
All right, Paul coming up. Sabres in Carolina with pregame coverage right ahead. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, WGR.
Game night tonight as the Buffalo Sabres will host Carolina at 7. Pregame coming up next. For the Sabres, their playoff hopes are alive, but by the slimmest of margins. To put it in the simplest terms, if Montreal wins any of their remaining 5 games, the Sabres will be eliminated. The Sabres, though, can stay alive by winning out and Montreal losing out. Montreal also in action tonight. They take on Detroit, also at 7. But for the Canadiens, they are getting some reinforcements as their first-round pick of last year's draft, forward Ivan Demidov, is leaving the KHL and has signed his 3-year entry-level contract. Also, some other notable matchups tonight. Florida hosts Toronto, and the Senators are in Columbus versus the Blue Jackets, both also at 7. At 8 o'clock, the Stars have Vancouver in town. Then 9:30 sees Colorado hosting Las Vegas. No Bison's game today due to the cold temperatures here in Buffalo. They are going to make that matchup up with Durham tomorrow with a doubleheader beginning at 4:35. In the majors, Yankees, they drop their 3rd straight. They lose to Detroit 5-0. The Mets currently lead the Marlins 6-2 in the 6th. And then the Blue Jays, they are going to be in action at 6:45 in Boston against the Red Sox. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
The Buffalo Sabres are on the air.
We're aggressive. We came out flying, honestly.
I'm always trying to find a way to get engaged. Typically for me, it's playing physical, finishing hits.
More than anything, I just want to be able to talk to the guys and let them know that I'm approachable and I can help them in any way.
I just want to play as much as I can. It's something that I feel like works. I feel like it's easier to kind of keep yourself kind of level.
The radio home of the Buffalo Sabres. This is the Buffalo Sabres pregame show from our flagship station in Buffalo. Here's your host, Schopp and the Bulldog.
That is Lukin in there at the end saying, I just want to play as much as I can. Yeah, James Reimer in goal again for the Sabres tonight, by the way. Hey, welcome inside to tonight's Buffalo Sabres pregame show along with Mike Schopp. I am the Bulldog, Sabres, and Carolina Hurricanes coming your way tonight a little bit after 7. We're here to get you ready for that. We're going to get to Paul Hamilton here in a moment, our first of 2 visits with Paul on a game night. We'll get you Lindy Ruff's meeting with the media earlier this morning at the game day skate, and then a couple of player interviews. Alex Tuck and Zach Benson will be featured. And then eventually we'll hand things back off to Paul Hamilton, who will be joined by Brian Koziel from Press Level at KeyBank Center. Want to mention here that if you're on your way to the game, your drive to the game is brought to you by Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. The Sabres come into this one, well, you heard it there in the update from Zach just a moment ago. 1 loss by them, or 1 Montreal win. Montreal's got 5 games left on the season. The Sabres have got 6. This is game 77 for them tonight. There's a bunch of traffic in between, too. So, I mean, look, it's, at some point they're going to get eliminated. It's a question of whether it comes tonight. But a Montreal win, regardless what the Sabres do with Carolina tonight, could officially eliminate the Sabres for a 14th straight season. That said, the Sabres' record coming into this game tonight is 34-36-6, good for 74 points. They are no longer in last place. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and the Bruins are all behind them. Pittsburgh have the same amount of points, but have played 2 more games. Nonetheless, that's where they stand. Carolina comes in 46-26-4, good for 96 points, comfortably second in the Metropolitan Division. They're in one of these spots here where there's enough game for them to, if they were to win them all and Washington lose them all, they could catch Washington, but they're 11 back, and I doubt that's going to happen. And likewise, they are 7 points clear of the Devils, who are in 3rd in the division. Things have started to get interesting here in the Atlantic, where Ottawa is knocking on the door behind Florida. Florida and Toronto play tonight, and boy, when they met, I think they met midweek last week in Toronto, and it was like, oh, this could be, a game that'll have a big bearing on the division title. Well, Toronto won it, and they're comfortably ahead of Florida. Tampa's knocking on the door now, and so things are getting a little sideways. A lot of what's being said here in the last few days is Florida might like to drop out of the top 3, take Ottawa's spot, and then meet Toronto. However, the Lightning are only 2 points back at Toronto, so there's only so much you can control there. But I know we'd all be lost, and it's been a long time. I know it's going to be 14 years of thinking about playoff matchups and who you'd rather face and all that kind of thing. That is all percolating at places elsewhere in both conferences as we are in the stretch run here toward the NHL playoffs. Let's bring Paul Hamilton in now live from KeyBank Center. Paul, what's going on, man? How are things down there?
Bulldog, I have a question for you.
Yes.
If the Sabres had made the playoffs this year, like they were in right now, would you be sitting here talking about who they should be losing to and winning to for their opponent in the playoffs?
Yes. Yes.
You would be.
Yes.
After being there for the first time in 13 years, you'd be talking about what they should be losing. They should be losing games to make sure they get this particular opponent.
That is not to say that I would be taking for granted their play, but if they were clinched, then yes, the only thing left is like, who would you rather play? That's all. And there's nothing there's nothing factual about that. It's all just opinion based, and that's what makes the world go round, Paul. I got a job. I can't feed my kids with just dry talk about what the team's records are, Paul.
But with the first time in 13 years, I would figure you might forego that conversation.
No, I know it. I miss it. Can you tell? I'm forcing it in before I'm talking to you. And by the way, I want to hear nothing negative about the band. These are three. I know at least three of these guys are personal friends of mine. I don't know about the rest of the group, but 90s by Nature. It's a cover group featuring a bunch of guys that I have played with at different times in different bands, and I'm excited that they have the gig going tonight. So
I'm actually so far so good.
Okay, good.
This is their first song, and I'm good with it.
I believe this is "Hey Jealousy" by the Gin Blossoms, which is squarely naughty 90s.
Many people think this is the Goo Goo Dolls, but it's not. It sounds a lot like them.
I totally get that. Yeah, it's got that feel.
Yep.
That works. So, Paul, I got a crack in there. I don't know if you were on the line already about how we got a clip of Luukkonen in the pregame intro. I just want to play as much as I can. And what is this now? Is this 8 out of 10, 7 out of 9? Where are we with Reimer in games played?
That was his first game in 7 last time, so he's played 1 in 8 now. Or 2 in 8, I'm sorry. Because he actually got the win. But that's the thing. Now he can't build on it. But, Lindy Ruff said on our air this morning, he is not here right now to be developing players. He has one thought in mind and one thought only, and that's to win hockey games and to teach this team how to play the right way to win hockey games and do it night in, night out, period in and period out. And that is the only thing. And you will hear him today. He doesn't want to hear about career wins. He doesn't want to hear about anything. All he is he's upset that he did not get this team to this point earlier in the season. And he goes, that is my whole entire focus, nothing else. So that answers the question, because you and I have talked about a couple of times, wouldn't it be better just to let Luukkonen keep playing and try to play out of this?
Mm-hmm.
And he wants none of it. He said the only focus is to show this team how to play the right way and show them when they play the right way, they're going to win hockey games and do it over and over and over again. That is his only focus.
Paul, Lindy's sounding like that, talking about how he's upset with himself that he didn't get them where they needed to be sooner and that they're finishing so strong. And I've heard and read other comments similar. I heard him talking like that with Jeremy and Joe, or Jeremy and Nate last week, in fact. Do you feel like that points to him wanting to return to try to see this through?
Listen carefully today to Lindy, and then we can talk about it again next time. No question in my mind that's with the things that he said in the last 2 to 3 weeks, post-game practices, today, there's no question in my mind he wants to be. This is unfinished business. The other day, it was after a game a couple weeks ago, he said that he is used to being able to fix things. That's what he's good at. Whether it's at home, whether it's in sports, whether it's in hockey, he fixes things. And it bothers him to no end that he has not fixed this. And it really bugs him. And you could just tell the way he was talking. He was like spitting nails. So that ever since then, and just listening today, there's just no question in my mind that he wants to be back.
Right. The question then becomes, does Kevin Adams come back? Because if he does, then I would assume Lindy is your coach. But if Kevin Adams' status is in any kind of peril, and who knows, I kind of thought when the trade deadline came and went that they let him make the Cousins trade, maybe spoke to that he's going to be back. But I don't know. That could change. The ownership can, they fired Bottrell in June, well after a season had ended, thinking that they were, on solid ground there. So we'll see about that. But yeah, interesting from Lindy, because I've been wondering for a while. People ask me when I'm out, what do you think? You think Lindy's going to, you think he wants to keep going? I'm thinking back to the very beginning of the season. One day Mike asked you a question about how this seemed to be going for Lindy, and you said he seems tired. And it was like October. I was like, he's tired? Yeah. We just started.
To a point, I honestly wondered if he was ill, seriously ill. That he was just kind of trying to push through. That went through my mind. Just because he's just not the same at all as he was the first 16 years I hung out with him here. He doesn't kid around quite as much, and near as much. I mean, now he'll give you the occasional quip. But even if you bust his chops as he walks in, he'll have a little bit of a comment, but it's not a back and forth like it used to be. Mm-hmm. But he has nothing to be happy about.
Right.
He didn't have teams like this for very long, just near the end of his coaching career here. So he was a little bit happier. But it was even that way. He walked in and, of course, had the joke when he came in and joked with me and Mike Harrington.
Right. Missed you guys, right?
Right. But other than that. So even right off the bat, that's why I wondered if he was ill, because that kind of stuff just wasn't there even from the start.
I wonder if that's something that just sort of goes away for him, engaging with the media, being in Dallas and New Jersey for the years that he was, right? Like Buffalo is a different place, right? Yeah. Like you all know him, we all know him. Like the audience feels like they know him, even though none of us really do. It's different here maybe than other places, and maybe he's just sort of gotten in the habit of it's more perfunctory than fun,
Plus, and this, you get crankier as you get older, so.
Paul Hamilton live at KeyBank Center. 90s by nature in the background, folks. Hope you're enjoying the jams. So, Paul, I know we talked about Thompson yesterday. How about Kulich at this point? Like, do you feel like, I know they're going to have plans for Norris, hopefully before this season ends, but we're starting to run out of runway for that with him. But I know Lindy talked about him being potentially a number one center for this team when he first got here and played 3 games. Boy, that line with Kulich, Benson, and Thompson. I mean, I know it's the end of the year and there's nothing to play for, and so, let's see them do it when there's a stake. I get all that. But, man, that line looks super dangerous.
Isn't it really cool, too, that here's Tage Thompson, and he's loving it. He's playing with a 19 and a 20-year-old, and they're producing. They're in the offensive zone. They're getting chances. They're producing. And, here's Tage Thompson, one of the leading goal scorers in the National Hockey League, playing with a 19 and a 20-year-old. And, I do see Kulich and Norris, and let's go one further, McLeod, as your top 3 centers moving forward. You can always put Thompson back there in the middle of a game when things aren't going well, or, or when you have an injury or something like that. I don't believe in rushing Ostlund. I would probably have him starting in Rochester again next year. As impressed as I've been with him so far, and as impressed as I've been in the last month or two watching him in Rochester, I would not. But I do think he is going to be a force in the National Hockey League as a two-way player. But you worry about that when it happens. I would not be worried about it next year unless you need a call-up or something like that. This organization is doing too much of rushing young players. They've got enough young players right now. It's veterans that they need to be filling roster spots with. So, but that's somebody to keep in the back of your mind, too, that I think is going to be a very good NHL player. Now, can he be a very good NHL player on the wing? or can McLeod be in it and have those two on a line together, because they both are very smart two-way players. And I could see them on a line together, but one of them is going to have to go to the wing. Where does Peyton Krebs fit in now that all of a sudden he's playing a lot better, and especially offensively? I mean, he had a couple assists against the Bruins. He's been shooting more lately, and it's been working. The puck's been going into the net for him at times. So, he's different now. It seems like he's coming along, and you're going to hear Lindy Ruff talk about him, and he said he kind of exemplifies what Lindy talks about, of a guy that has a smile on his face every day, is probably one of the hardest workers in practice, does anything asked of him. Lindy goes, I've asked him to take extra shifts. I've asked him to play center. I've asked him to play left or right wing. I've asked him to play on a top six line. I've asked him to play on a bottom six line. I've asked him to get less ice time. He goes, he never once complains. And, he's just there to do it. And, I'm looking at, I was talking about how hot that he has gotten. He's gotten points in 6 of his last 7 games. And 3 of those are goals and 5 assists. So he has 8 points in that time. That's probably the best offensive surge of his career. So as the Sabres are playing better now and playing Lindy Ruff's way, now Krebs is on board.
Right.
So where does he fit into all this that we're talking about? Because I think Kozak and Malenstein are definitely two of your...
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that.
Your guys down there for years to come. I would be fine with that. So I don't know if Krebs fits in there anymore. But you still have to get some veterans on this team. So that's why I say I don't know where Krebs fits into all this right now. Maybe to get a veteran, it comes in a trade, and some of these guys might wind up off the roster. So you don't know how this is all going to fit in. But if you're a fan of the Sabres, you have to be at least somewhat encouraged about what you're seeing from some of these youngsters recently. But will it carry over into October, as we said the other day?
Right.
We're going to have to wait till October, because who knows from one year to the next how things carry over.
Paul, give me your best 30 seconds on tonight's opponent, the Carolina Hurricanes, brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey. When it's game time, it's Tully time.
Well, Sebastian Aho thinks he's a Sabre killer. I mean, he just kills the Sabres every time. Michel Goulet was the one, or Kevin Dineen, who used to absolutely maul the Sabres every time he played them. He and of course is their leading scorer. Seth Jarvis is a 30-goal scorer. I mean, where did he come from? I mean, he's just really developed quickly for the Hurricanes. Svechnikov would be the guy that you expect to be a 30-goal scorer. He's got 19. He went in the Dahlin draft. So, Seth Jarvis having 30 goals is really a big boost for them. And Kachkov, their Russian goaltender, he's got pretty good goals against, but he's played 45 games. I don't know if he can get them through the playoffs, though. Maybe.
Right. Going to be a big question about them moving forward, I think.
That's been their problem.
Yep.
All of a sudden they get in the playoffs, the goals stop going in the net for them, and they don't get goaltending. So we'll see how that works out.
All right, Paul, thanks for this. We'll hear from you in about 20 minutes or so, and enjoy the game.
Okay.
That's our Paul Hamilton live at KeyBank Center. Soundtrack brought to you by 90s by Nature, local cover band. Go see him sometime. All right, let's hit a time. Well, no, not a timeout. It's Lindy Ruff. Time for Lindy Ruff's game day meeting with the media here.
Lindy, we saw in the team video when you talked about culture and how Jason Zucker has helped bring it. You said his play on the ice has exceeded expectation, but what has he brought as a guy from the outside to help the culture of the young people?
Well, a veteran guy that, proves that, with effort and doing the right thing, being prepared to play every game, bringing it every game, and that the first thing you do is look at yourself, look at your game before you look at anybody else's game. I think those are good guys to have around your players.
You guys are 93 in the last 12, and this thing, a lot of teams and a lot of seasons could go very south. And how has that translated that you're trying to build a culture here and you've been able to keep your season going?
Because we're trying to develop a belief in how we play, that you can consistently win hockey games. and we don't want to take any steps back, and we want to use every game as a platform for either learning from our mistakes or getting better at what we do. And I think last game was a great example of taking a step back in the first period and then playing probably two of the better periods I've seen us play, which tells me we've been able to, right the wrong right away and realize that the way we need to play to win is right there in front of us.
It's taken longer than you would have liked, but is this the culture you envisioned when you got here, what you've been seeing maybe in these last 12 games or so, or since the beginning of March?
Yeah, I think we're getting there. A team-first attitude, what give yourself up for the team, whether that means you have to put away some of the stick handling and dump pucks in and get it in behind. We're getting there. As I said, we're working on it. This is it's not a place we want to be, but we want to get something out of. When we started this, 15, 20 game, about digging in and trying to gain traction.
Who maybe embodies sort of what you're saying there, selfishness, being willing to do it. I mean, he came in, he adopted whatever role that he could, he earned a spot, and he's his game.
He might be one of the best examples, for sure. Never has a bad day. Probably one of our top practice guys when it comes to how hard you work in practice. It doesn't matter what role I cast him at in the game. He's been on right wing, he's been at center, he's been moved up. There's been a few games where he's been double shifted. There's a few games where he's light on ice time. But the one thing I know is when I put him out there, I'm getting 100% effort. And I think that is giving yourself up for whatever needs to be done to win a hockey game.
You're shooting all the time, but he had a heck of a pass to Tage the other night. Just what does that, like a play like that, illustrate to you, maybe about his growth or whatever?
There's a part of his game that needs to grow, and part of it is the distributing pucks and making that next play. Had discussions with him like midway through the year where he was shooting almost everything, and there was better plays to be made. I think he's still working in that part of the game. He's getting better at it. I think he made one heck of a play there to Tage. And at the same time, knowing that anytime he's inside the dots with the shot he's got, we know he's dangerous.
Is that a delicate balance, though? Because he's a shooter, and obviously there's an emphasis on shooting. So maybe
he's a shooter, but he's a centerman. Mm-hmm. So there is a balance there for sure.
Does he look more like himself in the last few games to you?
Yes. I said. Didn't seem like he was quite there in the first couple games. But I think you can see the difference now that with him skating the way he is and pushing people back and playing as well as he's played in his own end, it makes a difference for our club.
I know if I ask you about numbers, you're going to say the most important numbers are 9-3 in the last 12 games. But you're at 898 now. I mean, it didn't look like you were going to have a shot to get to 900 this season.
I could care less about 900, seriously.
But you understand the significance historically. I mean, only 4 guys have ever done
it. There's only one thing. We want to win hockey games, really. That's all we want to do, consistently win hockey games. Not about me and how many games I've won. It's about our team needs to consistently win hockey games, and that is really the whole focus.
And you're driven by the fact that the 9-3 is really...
I'm driven by the fact that I didn't get this team where I needed to get this team soon enough. That's what I'm driven by.
Lindy, in all your decades, whether it be guys you played with or against or guys you've coached, Tage Thompson's ability to shoot the puck or his finishing ability, does it remind you of anybody you played with or you coached?
I don't think so. I think probably the closest guy shooting that can shoot, can deke. Probably the closest guy. I put a lot of thought into this. I was asked this morning actually, and I didn't really have a good answer, but I put more thought into it, and I think I would probably put Thomas Vanek in that category. A guy that could tip the puck unbelievable, shoot the puck unbelievable, could stick handle. Tom Thomas was a hell of a player, and I see some of that in for sure. Tage, there's some similarities there where Thomas could rip it, Thomas could deke his way in, and there was goals that he scored that you would wonder why the goalie didn't make the save, but it's just the way those guys shoot the puck.
Alex Tuch is, for forwards, he leads the league in block shots, steals. What makes him so good at those two things, blocking shots and steals?
He's got length, like he's, for his size, the stick length, he closes quick. I think he surprises a lot of people. And it's one of his greatest assets. So he can, when I think a player thinks he can get away from or get it by him, he's got a really good stick. And not a lot of players like that have that kind of range. You know, that you go to a smaller player that can't quite get stick on puck, but he can get a stick on a lot of plays. Whether it's block shots, whether it's takeaways, he gets his stick in on a lot of plays.
How good does this stretch feel to you, and how instructive is it to your guys? All the goals you guys are piling up, and you're not cheating for offense, and you're still scoring this number of goals.
Like I said, we're just trying to really work hard at our game, and the offensive side is great. The defensive side is something that we want to maintain a really high level, because it just proves you play well away from the puck, which we didn't in the first period the other night. When you play well away from it, your offensive chances are there. You'll get your chances. And I think the guys are starting to believe in the way we need to play, and they're getting rewarded for it.
Okay, we'll take a timeout here after hearing from the head coach of the Sabres, Lindy Ruff, in advance of tonight's game against the Carolina Hurricanes. Mike and I will be back to continue the pregame show. We got a couple of player interviews lined up for you, namely Alex Tuch and winger Zach Benson. Eventually, we'll hand things off to Brian Koziel and Paul Hamilton down at KeyBank Center, and they will take you up to Puck Drop and play-by-play with Dan Dunleavy and Rob Ray. But first, a quick timeout, and then to the locker room as we continue here on the Buffalo Sabres pregame show. You're listening to WGR.